couple names have really emerged as strong possibilities for the Atlanta Braves. Aaron Nola and Sonny Gray. Both free agents right now. Of course, Sonny Gray from Smyrna, Tennessee, so not far at all away from Atlanta. It'd be something of a homecoming for Sonny after he put together some. Then Aaron Nola very much in demand. The interest in both of them is very strong.
Hey, alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's good to be back. Missed you guys. Austin was a blast. It's good to be back in the saddle, though. That voice you just heard was JP Morosi, who I love this time of the year. He's my absolute favorite human because, Alex, the reporting that he does is the kind of stuff that allows us to have a little bit of fun on the radio.
Yeah, he's like my toddler with oatmeal. Just puts a hand in it and throws it and sees where it goes.
And I love it. I love it. A lot of the time, he does have legit informed speculation, but that's more of what it is as opposed to like a informed report. You know, he's not saying the Cardinals are going to sign Aaron Nola. He's saying, hey, the Cardinals have an opening at the front end of their rotation. They have a lot of money they're willing to spend. Therefore, Aaron Nola makes sense. Hey, Sonny Gray is from Tennessee. That is close to Atlanta. Therefore, I think the Atlanta Braves might consider Sonny Gray. And I'm sure that they've talked to his representation, as they should, because that's what your job is this time of the year. Alex, the thing that I find to be interesting is, man, it ain't just the Cardinals and the Braves. I was going through a report earlier today from Jeff Passan, who was talking about the teams that are going to be interested in the starting pitching market. Can I read you a not quite complete list of the teams that, according to Jeff Passan, are interested in adding significant resources to their starting pitching?
Sure,
Alex?
But tell me where they were born so I know if it works.
The St. Louis Cardinals, the Baltimore Orioles, the Atlanta Braves, the Arizona Diamondbacks, Washington Nationals, Kansas City Royals, Pittsburgh Pirates, Tampa Bay Rays, Chicago White Sox, and it continues from there. That was a third of the league. The Athletic put out their list yesterday of what each team's top need is, and they broke it down between top-end starters, mid-tier starters, and back end of the rotation starters. I think every single team had at least one of those three things listed on their needs going into the offseason. Alex, I say all of that to say this. What if we are wrong? What if this does end up coming back to where it was at the beginning of the offseason, and hot damn, everybody's getting paid? Over on ESPN.com, Jeff Passan said, hey, Jordan Montgomery getting $100 million or more. Guaranteed. That's going to happen this offseason. Yamamoto might break a record for the most money ever given to a starting pitcher. He said he could be in the Garrett Cole, Steven Strasburg class of money that he ends up getting this offseason. Sonny Gray might end up getting more on an average annual basis than Blake Snell or Aaron Nola, according to Jeff Passan. This money might be getting back up towards the top end of the market the way that some expected at the beginning of the offseason. What does that mean for the Cardinals?
Means we're about to be real prudent with our decisions around these parts. It means that the Cardinals are kind of bleeped. It means they're going to have to make a trade because they're not going, we talked about this yesterday, like they're not going to get to the point where they overpay for a certain pitcher because then they're going to say, well, now we don't have money to do all of the other things on our to-do list that we need to get done. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to be ultra aggressive in the trade market because guess what? All of the teams that are in the race for these pitchers, some of them aren't going to be willing to meet the money that these pitchers want, which means they're going to be making trades. And that means you're going to have to give up the better pieces to get in what you want for the starting pitching route. So if it goes back to this, if it goes back to the ceiling of money for these starting pitchers, I hate to say this, but the Cardinals might be kicking the can down the road again for another year.
That can't happen.
I was going to say,
I know it can't happen
because...
But they're not going to trade Gorman. They're not going to trade one of the pieces that they deem valuable.
They can't kick the can down the road because then they'll just keep kicking the can down the road for eternity.
Well, then they can kick their ass out of this situation. Like, if they kick the can down the road, it's going to result in everybody getting fired.
And
they're going to be bad.
This is never going to change. This is the modern pitching market. Everybody wants pitching, no matter what free agent class you go to.
But what I mean by kicking the can down the road is not kicking the can down the road where they just run it back with their pitchers. They're not going to sign anybody that's valued as a 1 or a 2 for a rotation. Okay. They're going to kick the can down the road and say, well, Miles Michaelis will be our number 1. We'll sign a guy who could be a number 2, and then we'll put Zach Thompson and these guys in the spots.
Yeah, and Mo will be at the unemployment line next year.
I don't think he will.
What this means for the Cardinals is, A, if they're not going to be willing to go into a bidding war for the number one, because I think they'll be willing to have the conversations with that second tier. But if it comes down to Nola, Snell, Yamamoto, they go, man, this is getting crazy, then they're going to trade for the number one. Or they're going to have to get to the point that we've talked about since, I don't know, the first month of the season last year when things were clearly going wrong. They're going to have to get to the puke point where they say, man, we really don't want to give Aaron Nola a $30 million deal over 6 years. But you know what? We got to get a number one. We have no other choice. We don't want to give up the assets that the White Sox are asking for Cease or for Logan Gilbert. So you know what? This one really stings. I don't feel comfortable doing this contract. But you know what? We got to do it, and then we'll figure out the trickle-down effect from that.
At some point, the Cardinals are just going to have to make a decision. What are you most comfortable with screwing up? Are you most comfortable giving out too much money? Are you most comfortable giving up too much talent? Are you most comfortable being bad? Because those are kind of your three options going into this offseason.
I don't like those.
Are you most comfortable getting the number one starter but not getting the depth that you're looking for, or getting the depth that you're looking for but being light as your number one starter? Because when you operate within a budget, that's what is going to happen. I know, Alex, I totally understand why you were upset about the word prudent that John Mozeliak said last week at the general managers meetings. I think there were a lot of fans that that took on to that word and said, well, clearly they're just going to make the same old decisions. I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know. But what we do know is that they're going to be light somewhere. They're not going to be like some of these teams that go out there and just outspend all of their problems. Hell, even the Texas Rangers, who spent crazy amounts of money, even the Philadelphia Phillies, who spent, in the words of their own owner, stupid money, these teams still had issues too. The Phillies didn't have enough rotation depth by the end of the year. Their bullpen this year was good. Last year was really not. It had a few guys that you liked, but the depth of it was horrendous. You look at what the Astros had. They didn't have any depth in that bullpen this year. You look at what the Dodgers have. No depth to their rotation whatsoever. All of these teams have issues somewhere. It's a matter of where you're most comfortable having those issues going into the season. And for the Cardinals, if I'm them, I'm most comfortable not having that fifth starter that I'm super confident in on opening day. I can figure that out. I don't think I could figure out a number one starter by the trade deadline because we know how this team operates. They're not giving up the number one prospect in the system next year. They're not giving up Tink Hintz to be able to go get a number one starter like Corbin Burns or somebody like that at the deadline. They don't do that. So instead of waiting to get the guy that you know you're not actually going to do and kick that can further down the road, you got to go out there, be aggressive, and either via trades where you have to give up talent or free agency where you're giving up money, go get the guys that we've been talking about for months. Go get Aaron Nola or Blake Snell or Yamamoto, which isn't happening. Go get one of those other two guys. And I think the answer continues to be and always was Aaron Nola. It was always Aaron Nola. He makes the most sense for this team. You guys talked to Kylie McDaniel on, I think it was Friday, and he mentioned it as well. I was listening to that interview. Great job by you guys. He said, hey, listen, this is the exact type of guy that I would expect the Cardinals to be interested in. Same here. He's big, right-handed, has no durability questions whatsoever, all the makeup stuff that you could possibly ask for, and it's going to cost you a bleep ton of money. Go get it done. That's the guy.
Yeah, and you're at the point now where if you don't want to spend all of the money for it, then you're going to have to extend it on years. And I know nobody wants to hear that because you don't want to give an Aaron Nola 7-year deal, but this is how you don't spend $30 million a year if that's what it gets up to. And again, it sucks, but you know what? This is what the winning teams are doing right now. They're giving the extra years. Sometimes they're going to have to look at it and say, man, years 5, 6, and 7 are going to suck for our team. But you know why they don't suck as much? Because you've developed properly so that guys can step into roles, so you're pushing that player down a little bit.
And because you got a guy that's so good that the first 4 or 5 years of this contract doesn't matter, and
they help you
6
win.
or 7 is a number 4 starter in your rotation.
Now you have to be smart about who you're going to give those extra years to. Like I'd be a little hesitant to do that with the Blake Snell because at least I feel that Aaron Nola can be somebody who can be in my rotation even when he's 36, 37 years old. Where Snell, I'm worried he's in my bullpen.
Sure.
But you got to pick and choose. And guess what? If you're not going to be willing to do that, if you say, well, that's not the Cardinal way, we don't give 6 or 7 year deals to pitchers. Well, then you better start trading. You better start considering trading Nolan Gorman because that's the only way you're going to improve.
Yeah, and that means you didn't adjust your model then, too. Because the whole talk of, well, we got to look back at our model, see where things are, and pay the adjusted price for pitching now. Well, okay, this is the adjusted price for pitching. There can no longer be I can't believe people are going to give $30 million to an Aaron Nola, or $25 million over dollars to an Aaron Nola, or $25 million over 8 years. No, yeah, that's the cost of pitching nowadays. There's a lack of innings across baseball, and the guys that do throw a lot of innings are going to get paid. So they would have to adjust the model. This is the year you do it. They're going to have to reach the peak point, and this is probably the season that it happens.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Here goes BK, still talking about Aaron Nola. It seems like vacation didn't make him any wiser. Yeah, I'm going to continue talking about Aaron Nola.
So he's a Brave.
Hey, I did it while you were gone.
If the Cardinals aren't going to go out there and consider an Aaron Nola, then I don't know what they're doing. Then the talk of them changing their model, they didn't. Now, he may decide, I want to go to Atlanta. I want to stay in Philadelphia.
Because he's from Louisiana.
Exactly. I want to go elsewhere, and that's his prerogative. But it should not be because the Cardinals didn't offer a requisite amount of money. If he chooses a different market, so be it. But if you don't put the best foot forward in terms of the offer, that is where I'm going to have a big time issue. The report should not come out after Aaron Nola signs here or elsewhere, where it's, hey, the Cardinals weren't even in it, really, at the end. They didn't make an offer that justified them being in the conversation when he was making his ultimate decision. That cannot be the case. Last thing here before we get to the Blues coming up here in just a little bit. Guys, today is a bit of a deadline day in Major League Baseball. It's the day that I find to be incredibly boring and frustrating and well overstated, but
it's like bunting in baseball.
No, this is like the home run of baseball.
You know how general managers are always telling you about our 40 man.
Yeah, it's full in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's always full, and then we get a month into the season and realize there's 12 spots that you can play with.
Well, Cardinals can.
Well, today is that day where they have to decide who is coming or going on the 40-man roster. And T-Bone, you think that they could get a bullpen arm today?
Yeah, today feels like a bullpen arm day.
Cool.
I mean,
maybe get an outfielder.
No. There might be a day they trade an outfielder. Teams are going to be looking for trade partners, mostly for a bunch of bullpen arms that go up and down, and they say, okay, can we improve upon this guy? Like Scott Barlow, for example. Padres trying to save some money, would like to free up some 40-man spot, looking to try and move him this offseason. He might be dealt today. And I think this is one of those days where the Cardinals can flip one of their outfielders potentially, too. To where they could say, okay, we don't really have a role for Juan Yepes. Does somebody want to take a flyer on him? Like, we're giving him away.
Moises Gomez.
Yeah, Moises Gomez, out of here.
Lil Poppy.
I think they'll
not Alec Burleson, Lucan Baker.
He'll hit the ball out of here somewhere else.
I think there's a chance that the Cardinals make a move. Now, I'm not telling you it's going to be a big, sexy move, but I think there's a chance they make a move, try and get a bullpen arm
They'll
today.
probably acquire their ace today, and then they'll say, we got to be
bullpen
prudent.
arms for the Rays, and the Rays are always the team that I circle on this day because they always make like 4 or 5 trades to remove players from the 40-man roster to churn out that bullpen of theirs. Sean Armstrong, no options for him. Good reliever for the Rays. Maybe he's somebody they consider moving. Garrett Clevenger, another guy, no options remaining for him with the Rays. They like having flexibility within their bullpen, so these are kind of the guys that get a little more expensive. Maybe they decide to move on from him. Those are the types of players that you're looking at. Not big name players, but 6th or 7th bullpen arms in your bullpen next year. Those are the kinds of guys you're probably looking at today. Maybe they end up becoming something a little bit more, but that's the type of player you're probably talking about for the Cardinals.
Someone said, can someone tell Alex that his attitude isn't helping? Well, I have this attitude because this is what the Cardinals are going to do to us, ladies and gentlemen.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters, including the team that I just don't understand why people continue to believe they're going to be more than what they actually are. We'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes or so. We'll give you our football pick and reveal later on in the show today. I'm feeling particularly cheery in regards to that. We'll get into that coming up in a little bit today. But coming up next, it's time for a vibes check. Alex feels a little down talking about the Cardinals. I haven't talked to him about the Blues yet, though. How you feeling, buddy? We'll do that next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you alongside Tracy Bibb to talk about My Insurance. Tracy and her team are the best when it comes to Allstate. And Tracy, you talk about making sure that you have the correct rate. You talk about how Allstate always has the most competitive rates. Why is it important for individuals to know what their insurance covers with the rates?
Yeah, it's extremely important right now. We are currently in what's called a hard insurance market. So we are seeing a ton of companies take rates, but they're also doing other things. They're possibly non-renewing people. They are increasing deductibles. You might not have even looked at your stuff recently to know that your deductible on your home or your vehicles have changed. So a really important time to give us a call and let's see what we can do about your insurance needs.
Making sure that you're always checking this, making sure you're on top of this. This is why Tracy and her team are the best, because the customer service is at an all-time high. Give her a call today. Tell her Alex Ferrario sent you, and you can get a free non-committal quote. 314-328-4260. Again, that's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in good hands with the Bib. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go Blues.
Buchnevich, he scores! Power play goal! Stolen away by Thomas. Buchnevich, shorthanded breakaway. Shoots, he scores! If you've got another hat, chuck it at your radio. Kairu, behind the net, holds, finds Thomas, far side, Shen. One-timer, he scores! Shot gets blocked in front by Blay, and that'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni. 8-2. Victory over the Colorado Avalanche.
Hot damn. I leave for 4 days, and now the Blues are scoring 8 goals in a game alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, the only teams in the Western Conference right now that have a better points percentage than your St. Louis Blues are Vegas, Vancouver, Dallas, LA, and Colorado. Blues 6th in the Western Conference in points percentage at this point in the season. If you want to go by goal differential, Alex, did you know that the Avs have only outscored their opponents this year by 4 goals, and the Blues have actually outscored their opponents now by 1? They're right there with the Avs, with the Jets, with the Ducks. I mean, they're really in this thing at this point, and this is the point in the season that we said a couple of weeks ago, hey, let's revisit things after they get here. After that Colorado Avalanche game, we can revisit where we're at on the team. Well, it's time for a vibe check. Where are you at on the Blues at this point in the season, Alex? 13 games in, 7-5-1.
Hit it, T-Bone.
I'm picking up good vibrations.
That is
BK's picking up good vibrations.
That nailed it. Sounds just like the Beach Boys right now. I mean, I'm positive. I think that my vibe check is going to go a couple of more weeks, if that's all right. Like, I'm going to ask for an extension.
Are we just going to keep doing this?
Probably. This is what we did last year, where we kept pushing it off.
After game 82, how I'm feeling.
That's very true. No, I mean,
at some point, the IRS is going to say, no, you can't have another extension.
Yeah, but I could keep pushing, and it's all right, man. You'll get the money from me. No, I mean, look, you played 5 straight games against some really good opponents. Like, I know earlier in the season, T-Bone was like, man, you beat Calgary. They're a bad team. Or, you beat Pittsburgh. Well, there's no excuses for...
I was right about that, by the way.
There's no excuses for you beating the New Jersey Devils or the Montreal Canadiens. You were in that game with Winnipeg up until that third period.
Montreal's lost 5 of their last 7.
Well, I'd say the Blues put them in a downward spiral then. But you beat the Arizona Coyotes, and then, look, you just put 8 goals up on Colorado. You have not... A team has not put up 8 goals on Colorado in Colorado since 2009.
Damn.
And that wasn't against the backup goaltender. That was their number one guy. Everybody was in the lineup with the exception of Arturi Lehkonen. So you just went into Colorado, and as Braden Shen put it yesterday, you instilled a lot more confidence in this team. The only reason I say, can I push my vibe check off a couple more weeks, is you're about to go on a stretch after tonight of playing the remainder of November against Western Conference teams. And the teams that you beat, you got 2 Eastern Conference teams. You beat a Central, which was good, and you beat another Central in the Arizona Coyotes. But right now, this team at 5-on-5, I went into this yesterday, they're one of the top 6 teams in terms of even strength goals allowed at 5-on-5. So right now, they are not allowing a lot. If you figure out your power play, if you tighten up on your penalty kill, and this goal scoring actually continues, and it's not a facade, then this team is considered one of the top 5 teams in the Western Conference.
The 5-on-5 improvement, I'm not even talking about defensively anymore, is something that has me feeling good. My vibrations are starting to get towards the good vibrations.
I'm picking up good vibrations.
Okay. Not yet.
I'm riding the fence, Brandon.
I'm probably going to hop on the other side.
In the last 5 games, the Blues have actually had the exact same number of shots on goal as their opponents at 5-on-5. For this team, that is a vast improvement compared to where they were at previously. And within those shots on goal, the Blues have actually outscored their opponents 14-7 at 5-on-5 in the last 5 games. Save percentage for the Blues at 5-on-5 in those 5 games, 92%, man. So you're getting the good goaltending, which has been a constant all season long. You're not allowing a ton of shots on goal. Again, constant all season long. But now you're starting to produce offense at 5-on-5. And not just when it comes to the goal scoring ability, but you're starting to translate that into more shots that are being taken on net as well. Everything's starting to come around in that regard. It is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. They still need to get more shots on goal, because if you shoot around what they're doing right now, you probably aren't going to produce this kind of offense. It'll be still one of the worst 5-on-5 offenses in the NHL, but they went from a standard deviation behind the worst offenses in the NHL to hey, you're right up there with 20 to 25. That's kind of where you're at right now. And given what they've got in terms of their defense, what their save percentage is, that'll play, man. That
think
can
of what
work
you just
for
said.
you.
Go back to a year ago and think of what you just said, given what they have in their defensive play and their save percentage.
And I don't know that their defense is great, but they've gotten so much better with their forwards defensively, and just at the new scheme that they're playing, it's working. And what they were trying to accomplish in the offseason is coming together. Where my vibes are at right now, I think this is pretty much what the Blues are. I think they're going to be up and down. I think you're going to go through moments where you watch individual games and you say to yourself, oh my God, if we put together the power play, if we put together the penalty kill, if we continue what we're doing defensively, this team could actually be pretty good. And there will be other nights, like when you watch them against Winnipeg or Colorado the last time, or against Vancouver, where you say to yourself, oh, man, this team can't score. The defense can't hold up long enough to be able to allow the offense to get things going. The goaltending didn't quite give them enough. There was that one head dip moment. I think that's going to be what it is all season long. I think they're going to be right in the mix for a playoff spot, and they're probably going to be, at the end of the day, somewhere in that wild card range. I don't know where they'll end up, and that's where the extension comes in. But I think we now know it's not going to be a bottom feeder, and it's not going to be one of the best teams in the NHL. And as of a week or two ago, I thought one of those 2 options was very much on the table.
Well, I can tell you won't happen. And we've seen multiple occasions of this that the Blues have avoided. You're not going to see that long losing streak because this team does not seem to have confidence problems. And I think Braden Shen said it perfectly after that win.
Their goaltending prevents that.
Their goaltending prevents it, but I also think that the play, the consistent play of the forwards and the inability to deviate away from what they know wins games is why that hasn't happened. Because last year, it seemed they just forgot as a unit how to play hockey. This season, after it's gotten bad, they go right back to what works. And some of this is because of the players and how they're forming the line combinations. But a lot of this also is just understanding, like, hey, that's not how we're supposed to play to win, and let's get back to it with the forecheck.
Yeah, I tend to be on the same side as BK. I think this is what they are. Now, with that being said, I think they're a little bit better than what I thought coming into the year, because I said they'd be right around 500. I think they're slightly better than 500. I think they are going to be one of those wild card teams. And we said coming into the year, that's 88 points probably. That's probably what I would say they're going to traject towards right now, where there are going to be up and downs. But as long as you avoid that big snowball effect and you get that 7-game losing streak, and that never happens, I think you're a team that you will go through the up and downs. You'll probably see a winning streak of 5 games here and there, maybe a losing streak of 4. But I think this is definitely a team that is a playoff caliber team, as long as they stick to this model, which is, okay, 5-on-5, let's make that kind of a wash, and let's see if we can score on our power play. And that's why I think the power play is so important, figuring this thing out. And I don't think it's this bad. I think wash everything that's happened from the power play from this point. Can you get from this date until the end of the year? Can you be middle of the pack in the power play? If you are, you're a playoff team.
The biggest thing for them is just getting Jordan Kyrou going as a goal scorer. His shooting percentage right now is 4.3%. This would be like in baseball if you had a guy that's always been really good at his batting average, and his batting average on balls in play, despite hitting it really hard, was like 205.
Oh my God, has he become Alec Burleson?
He's Wilson
Matt
Contreras.
Carpenter.
Like what Wilson Contreras was in the first month and a half of the season, where you're like, hey man, is this going to go as well as we expected it to? And then you look at some of the underlying numbers, you're like, oh, he's fine. He's the same player that he always has been. It's just been a little unlucky.
The way we fix Kyrie, we make him a defenseman for a couple games.
Exactly. That's probably
Put him in the
what they
outfield.
should do. Put him in net. Let's see what it looks like.
Come on now.
He's going to be fine. His goal scoring will come around. Right now, he's got 2 goals in the first 13 games of the season. His shooting percentage is at 4%. He's typically like above 10% on the year. So I would anticipate that will come around eventually. And when it does, you suddenly got another goal scoring threat in Jordan Kyrou. That's both on the power play and at 5-on-5. That's going to change things a lot for this team. He's going to open things up for them in a way that right now it still does at times look congested, despite what it looks like over the weekend.
I mean, scoring is contagious. Robert Thomas was in a drought that we were all talking, maybe this guy's not a number 1 center, and now he went on a streak where he scored goals in 5 of 6
Just
games.
amazing.
And he's at like 12 points now. Braden Shen was a guy we were asking what's going on through 10 games, and now he's picked up 5 goals. Pavel Buchnevich called himself awful, and now he's picked up 4 goals. Like, scoring's contagious, and as soon as Jordan Kyrou puts one in the back of the net, you're going to start to see him coming through. And when that happens, that's where this team becomes more dangerous, because right now they've got one line that you're afraid to play against.
He's got 1 goal in his last 37 shots.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think that's going to eventually regress to the mean in a positive way.
When he gets,
like what that ends up looking like a week or 2 from now. Kind of similar to the thing with Robert Thomas. He was lagging when it came to his points production in the first 10 games of the year, and now, boom, suddenly you look up and he's more than a point per game producer. That's what it'll be for Kyrie.
When he gets going, you're going to have 3 lines that you're confident in every time they step on the ice, and the one you'll be talking about is figuring out how to get the Hayes line going.
And as long as you can have that while also maintaining the defensive structure that you have right now, that's when you're going to like what it looks like. All right, coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We're going to get into some NFL quick hitters, including the Buffalo Bills making a big decision this morning that they hope will change their outlook for the season. I think they're already too far gone. We'll discuss it next here on 101 ESPN.
Dan Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they host the Tampa Bay Lightning. And we'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. And then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find a road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Drive for the win. Lutz. He missed it. But a flag is down.
12 men on defense. 5-yard penalty.
Wow.
Still fourth down.
Good snap, good hold. Kick. Perfect. And the Broncos have come to Buffalo. And they're going to leave with a win. 24-22. To get to 4-5.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that's what it sounded like last night on ESPN as the Bills lose on Monday Night Football at home against the Denver Broncos. Alex, I was told by everybody, BK, why don't you believe in the Bills? BK, the Bills have been so good. BK, Josh Allen, such a good quarterback.
All right, man. We get it.
They're 5-5. Their 5 losses came against the Jets, the Jaguars, the Patriots, the Bengals, and the Broncos. All 5 losses are in the AFC.
I like how you said the Bengals like it was a good loss.
It is. The Bengals are a good team.
Yeah, they lost to Houston yesterday.
Who's not in the playoffs right now? The Bengals.
Give it like 3 weeks.
By the way, our guy Donnie Fandango's going through it today, so send him a nice message. He's going through it.
Dude, this is who they are. We knew this. They can go out there and look like the best team in the world against the Miami Dolphins and win that game 48-20, and then the next week they lose against the Jaguars. They can go out there and look really good, 38-10 against the Raiders. And then the week prior, though, they lose against the Jets after they had already lost Aaron Rodgers in the first quarter of that game. This is who the Bills are. Yeah, they fired their offensive coordinator today. It's going to change nothing. This is who they are because this is who their quarterback is. Josh Allen is wildly erratic. At his best, there is nobody better. At his worst, there might be nobody worse. If you just put on a blind taste test and you were like, hey, who is that guy that just made that throw? And it was just the dots on the screen, you know, like they do on Twitter. And instead of seeing the names, you just saw a dot and you saw where he threw it to. You'd be like, I don't know if that was Zach Wilson or Josh Allen, but it was definitely one of those two because they're the only guys that would make that pass.
Yeah, that's fair.
He is modern-day Brett Favre. And that is all the good and all the bad that came with Brett Favre on the field, to clarify here. That's who Josh Allen is, man. You may end up winning a Super Bowl with him if he goes on a heater for a 3-game stretch because he's capable of that. You could also end up losing your next 10 playoff games because of him because that's what he's got. That's who the Bills are, and they signed up for this when they gave him the massive money, which they should have. You have to do that, but this is who he is, man.
I blame Ken Dorsey. Yeah. Because Brian Dable had an MVP. I blame Ken Dorsey in this one right now. But I will say this also, and I agree. I'm on the board with you. Josh Allen has been so inconsistent and erratic, and he's costed this team. But he's also had some crap around him, too. Like, his offensive line provides zero protection. That dude's under pressure the moment he drops back. And then, like yesterday, like, how many times have we seen guys drop balls or not have the right...
Stop it.
What are you talking about? Stop it. Gabe Davis had that ball in his hand, and it went right into the Denver Broncos.
I'm supposed to give him this out when I'm watching C.J. Stroud dominate, and he's got Noah Brown, who couldn't even get on the field for the Cowboys because of how bad he was, and he's making him into one of the best receivers in the NFL behind a terrible offensive line.
Use your ears. Did I say that he's still a great quarterback?
Yeah, you said
no, but you were definitely paving the path for it now.
Let's look at the receivers dropping all these balls and the offensive line that can't block and the running game that doesn't. No, man.
That's an out.
No, it's not an out. He's an average quarterback, but he looks worse because his team around him is crap also.
It's not, though.
It is.
Not. I'm done giving these guys the outs. It's not a bad team around him.
Okay.
It's not.
Sure.
Stephon Diggs is amazing. He's got one of the better young tight ends in the sport right now. You have a good coaching staff in place. Ken Dorsey's not great, but he's fine, man. Josh Allen's the one that's making these boneheaded mistakes.
Yeah, because he dropped that pass that turned into an interception.
Take that one out.
What about the other interception?
Sure.
That was horrendous.
And I said he's an average QB with crap around him, and it makes him look worse.
He's not an average quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I am willing to concede that argument. I think if you were like making a list of the quarterbacks that you would want to build around, Josh Allen is top 5 to 7 in the league, and I think that's conservatively speaking. He might be 2 for a lot of people right now. But this is the kind of crap you got to deal with when you have him as your starter. I don't care what the supporting cast is, man. You could put him on the Bengals. There would be games with the Bengals where he's putting up 60 because he's that good. And there would be other games because of that offensive line where we'd be saying to ourselves, man, Josh Allen's getting screwed out here because of the O-line. No, Josh Allen holds on to the ball way too long, and that makes his offensive line look worse. That is something that is a quarterback trait, not inherently a offensive line issue. Their offensive line isn't good. But it's not as bad as they look because Josh Allen behind them makes them look worse because he's always looking for the splash play. He always wants the 70-yard touchdown. And when you do that, it's kind of what it looks like for you.
Oh, you have to when you have a crap team around you.
Now, I 100% agree with BK. And I understand the argument of Davis should have caught that ball last night, but that other interception's inexcusable. He's thrown it into double coverage. It's not there. He does that throw all the time. That's not a one-off. C.J. Stroud has just 2 interceptions on the year. Why? Because he's not making that kind of play that I'm seeing Josh Allen do, where he's trying to go for the 70-yard touchdown pass, going into double coverage. I can't tell you how many times I've watched Bill Game and go, what is he looking at? I don't see it. And that is a trait on Josh Allen. So I agree with BK. You live and die by it. And you got to do it if you're the Bills because it's harder to draft a quarterback better than Josh Allen. But you just got to go with it. And you just hope he gets hot in the playoffs.
You should go hug afterwards.
I mean,
because we're right, I will. I'll hug BK because we're on the same page and right.
I think Josh Allen is an incredibly talented quarterback that I would have paid all of the money to as well. It was a smart call. But this is who he is, man. We're not early in his career anymore. If you want to look at in his first year, who led the NFL in interceptions that year? It was him. If you want to look at since that year, it's been him. Every year that he's been in the league, if you go since 2018, since 2019, since 2020, since 2021, since 2022, since 2023, every year, the guy that leads the interception since that point in time is Josh Allen. It's a him problem, man. It's not a supporting cast problem at this point. And it's not going to fix anything that you fired your OC this week. It's not. They have the Jets next weekend, right? Am I right on that?
Sounds right.
Jets next weekend, and then Philly, and then Kansas City, and then Dallas, and then the Chargers, and they finish up the season in Miami. They might win 7 games this year. And then they're probably going to have to fire the entire staff down there in Buffalo. And you probably are going to end up trading Stephon Diggs as well. We said it all offseason, man. This is a team that needed change. And they brought everybody back and said, we're going to run it back. Everything's fine here. And the vibes were off all offseason. It was super weird the moment that they walked through the door. And it's been super weird all year long. All right, let's continue here. Which AFC contender are you buying into the most now that the Bills are clearly out of that class because of their quarterback, Alex?
I'd say wide receivers.
The Steelers, the Texans, or the Broncos? Which of those 3 surprise AFC contenders are you buying into the most right now?
I think this is pretty obvious. It's the Texans. I'm not buying into the Broncos. The Broncos have this weird way of winning games where they do these 3-yard plays 3 separate times and then go for some big play downfield on 4th down and convert and then kick field goals. They're boring as all hell. Steelers, I still say, don't have a quarterback. It's the Texans. The Texans have a dominant offense. Even if their defense can't keep up, we've seen them go up against some pretty decent defenses in these last couple of weeks and have found ways to still beat them. So I say the Texans.
I agree. I would say the Texans by far because I think they've got the best quarterback of this group that we're talking about. And though I agree the question marks on defense, they've shown they can outscore their defensive issues at times. So I would definitely say the Texans. You look at the Broncos, I agree, they're boring as hell. And you look at the Steelers, they've been outgained in every game this year. They should not be in the playoff picture, but somehow they are.
They're this year's Vikings. Now, they go about it differently. Last year, the Vikings did it with offense. The Steelers are doing it with defense, but it's the same idea. They're a fraudulent team that's going to end up making it to the playoffs, and then we're going to enjoy the hell out of betting against them in the first weekend of the postseason.
And probably lose a ton of money.
Kenny Pickett, this is his yardage over his past 5 starts. 114, 224, 230, 160, 125.
Ugh.
They won all but one of those games. It doesn't make any sense, man. I don't understand it, but they're finding a way to get it done. That defense is really, really good. You guys are right. It's very clearly the Texans. C.J. Stroud is amazing. And watching him right now, it really makes you second guess what the Panthers did in the draft this year.
Oh, no, haven't you heard the Panthers? It's about the long term, not the short term. Yeah.
I feel pretty bad about both the long and short term for them right now.
Pretty sure short term good things for quarterback mean long term good things.
I think we're already on the rebuild of the rebuild.
Yeah.
Good.
of the rebuild.
Good.
The problem is Bryce Young was supposed to be the most quote-unquote pro-ready of the quarterbacks.
Well, he's the third most pro-ready of the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Stetson Bennett looked good for one game.
Well, he hasn't played yet. He's apparently not available.
Preseason, he
Not
looked
really
good.
sure exactly what's going on with him.
Off the field issues.
Oh, good. When's his Netflix piece coming out?
I don't know when we're going to see him. I'm a little worried to make any jokes. All right. Speaking of the Panthers trading that number 1 pick, Alex, you look back on it, and if you just had selected from the spots where they were at, they would have ended up with Jalen Carter, Tyreek Stevenson, who's a pretty good, solid starting level cornerback right now for the Bears, DJ Moore, and right now they would have the number 1 pick in the 2024 class, which would either be Drake May or Caleb Williams, depending on who you prefer.
And I feel would much more comfortable with May or Williams over Bryce Young.
Is this going to go down as one of the worst trades in the history of the NFL?
At least for the history of the Panthers. I don't know in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's
history of the Panthers, absolutely.
Yeah, it probably will.
I mean, it's hard. It's always hard to do the history of the NFL.
It is tough
I
to
think
what would they do?
I feel comfortable with this.
What would their quarterback situation be this year? I mean, it's bad already. But what would they do?
Who cares?
Andy Dalton, I guess.
Yeah, he'd be better.
Which
never better
looked
with
better than
Amari
Bryce
this year.
Young.
Yeah, this is a terrible trade.
It's going to go down as one of the worst ever.
Yeah.
If this is what you could have had, I mean, Jalen Carter looks awesome for the Eagles right now. Tyreek Stevenson, starting level corner. DJ Moore, legitimate, I mean, at worst, number 2 wide receiver for a contending team. And you still end up with one of those top 2 quarterbacks. I have no idea if Caleb Williams or Drake May are going to work in the NFL. I'm pretty sure Bryce Young won't. I don't know if he's going to end up being terrible, but I would be genuinely shocked if Bryce Young ends up being great. Genuinely shocked.
Someone said, get Bryce Young a legit wide receiver, and let's see. Who's the legit wide receiver in Houston right now?
Tank Dell's really good, but come on.
But second round pick.
He's spotty too.
Yeah, and
this
Noah
is
Brown.
why I'm not willing to listen to any of the conversations about supporting cast in the NFL anymore.
Did you guys know Noah Brown played for the Dallas Cowboys? Because I didn't prior to this past weekend.
I like the Cowboys, and I've always kind of enjoyed him, but
okay, well,
that's
I
the only
didn't.
reason why.
I didn't, and the man is a 7th round pick, and he's putting up 170 yards a game.
It's insane.
Yeah,
it's absolutely
so get
insane.
the hell out of here.
And he's doing it with a bunch of dudes that are fine.
And the offensive line is trash too.
They've got a good offensive coordinator, a great quarterback, and that's making everything else look better.
I can't wait till Stephon Diggs is on the Texans next year.
Oh, dude, that's
a good one.
Awesome.
That's a really good one.
God, I would.
I mean, his brother tweeted out, "Get him out."
Yeah, but maybe send him to Dallas.
I'm sure his brother would like that, but
that's really
God.
good.
I would love that
They need
trade.
a number 1, and I think Diggs. I mean, his brother doesn't send out that tweet unless his brother wants out, and we've gotten that vibe since the start of the year.
I would love that team.
That's a fun one.
Make it happen.
That might be my new favorite team. I might become a Texans fan if they pull that trade off.
Coming up in 15 minutes, it's time for our first Choose Your Own Adventure for the Cardinals offseason. We're going to give you a few different options over the next 4 days
Also
for the
known
Cardinals
as
offseason.
Picking a path Mo won't go down.
This one's probably unlikely.
Oh, good. Let's start it off with the most unlikely move, the biggest move.
So we'll get through some of these over the next few days, and then by Friday, we'll have you guys vote on which one you think is most likely for the Cardinals and which one you would most like to see the Cardinals go down. We'll give you a few different paths over the next few days. We'll get into that coming up at the top of the hour. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Let's start with this from the 314. I haven't talked about the Missouri Tigers yet, boys. I'm getting an itch. And we got to talk about the Tigers. And somebody on the text line said, guys, serious question. Is there any way that Cody Schrader could realistically get into the Heisman conversation? In my opinion, he should already be there, but Mizzou seems to be held to a different standard than everybody else. Is there a scenario where he gets involved? Unfortunately, sir or madam, I do not believe that that will end up taking place. He has been awesome this year. There is no doubt about that. But he is 7th in college football so far this season in rushing, and Ollie Gordon is kind of running away with that. He is the Oklahoma State running back. If there was going to be a running back that was in that conversation this year, it is probably him. Unfortunately for Cody Schrader, unless he just goes off in the last couple of weeks, which is possible, I'd be pretty surprised if there's any way for him to get involved. There's just been too many great quarterback seasons, in my opinion.
So if it's not Heisman, we talked about this yesterday, does he make it on an NFL team next year? Not drafted, does he make it on an NFL team next year?
I think he'll probably get some kind of like practice squad invite. This is not to, I always feel tough in these spots because I think there's a lot of players that are just really excellent college football players that don't necessarily have futures in the NFL, and I think he's one of those guys. He's really good at finding the hole and getting what is available to him. NFL teams want guys that are finding the hole, getting what's available to them, and then creating another 3 yards. And that's not really Cody Schrader's game. He has been an excellent running back at Mizzou, but if you're talking NFL potential compared to Tyler Beatty or Larry Roundtree or Demarie Crockett, Henry Josie, some of these other guys, Marcus Murphy that we've seen in previous seasons, I don't know that he even stacks up against any of those guys, and many of them had very short NFL careers. What did you guys say about that?
Just his Heisman potential?
No,
or
you asked
the NFL.
yesterday
we just said like it always seems like those types of guys end up whether on a practice squad or they get an invite and they go through preseason and then by the end of it they either get cut or they get kept on that practice squad. But everybody wants running backs, especially you don't want to spend massive assets, whether it's money or high draft picks on these. So I don't see him getting drafted, but I can absolutely see some teams saying let's take a chance on it. And if it doesn't work out, you're talking about being on a practice squad, or a lot of people have brought up the XFL.
Yeah, I can see either of those.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was. He reminds me a little bit of Chase Brown, and Chase Brown got drafted, and he hasn't played at all for the Bengals. Yeah. And he gives off a little bit of that vibe. So I think he could make it on an NFL team. I just don't know if he'll have a significant role in doing so.
Yeah, I agree. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, I've seen a lot of people angry about a potential Marcus Stroman deal, but he's been pretty good his entire career. Would you take Marcus Stroman this offseason for the Cardinals? Let me start out with this. I would be genuinely shocked if the Cardinals signed Marcus Stroman. That being said, if he was the second best starter that they signed this offseason, I'd be fine with it. He's an okay starter.
He's an okay starter. His second half struggles worry me a little bit.
That's right.
I mean, this year it was really bad. In years prior, and I think he was hurt this year too, so that's part of it. But like he's always the first half performer, and then post All-Star break, you're thinking it's like, oh, what the hell happened to Marcus Stroman? So I would be absolutely A-okay with this one, but I think you have to get, once again, a lot more certainty in front of Marcus Stroman.
Agreed.
Rather than acting like Marcus Stroman is the guy.
Stroman, the last 4 full seasons in which he has played, ERA by year. 3.2, 3.0, 3.5, 3.9. If that's your second best starter that you sign, it's kind of similar. I mean, he goes about it differently because he doesn't strike a bunch of dudes out, but if that's the second best starter that you sign, it's pretty similar to what I've been saying about Sonny Gray. Really good signing. Not going to change anything in terms of what the number one starter is, but really good signing.
Yeah, I think he'd be a solid signing as the number 2, and I actually like Stroman, but I don't know if the Cardinals bring him in because, one, he doesn't have the swing miss that you're talking about, and you almost have to be an elite defensive team to have that, and the Cubs were that this year with Marcus Stroman. And 2, I think you can still look for better. Your hope would still be to have a better number 2 than Marcus Stroman by the end of the offseason, in my opinion.
Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll get to our football pick'em reveal from last Thursday. It was a good week for your boy, and we'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes or so. But coming up next, it's time for a Choose Your Own Adventure, Cardinals offseason edition. I've put together a mock offseason for the Cardinals, Alex, to discuss what it would look like within the parameters that the Cardinals have set, needing 3 starters or 2 and a bullpen arm, and within a $50 million price range. What could they do within that parameter? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's, the famous frozen custard off of Chippewa, which has been going since 1929. And when I say going, they have been making family destinations. It's not just a dessert spot. It's a St. Louis institution where you've seen tons of families out there sitting in the back of their cars eating Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. And the best part about it, too, is they've got all types of flavors. My favorite, you got the Oreo, the cookies and cream concrete, but maybe you want to get the Blue Note now that we're middle of the hockey season. Ted's delicious vanilla custard mixed with a blend of fresh blueberries, smooth lemon cream, graham crackers served as a concrete or a sundae. Here's the best part about it, too. You can buy it in bulk and take it home with you and have it for the holidays. While you're there, walk across the parking lot and check out the Ted Drew's gift shop, where you can shop a variety of unique apparel, souvenirs. You can get gift cards, which are also the perfect gift this holiday season, over at the Ted Drew's gift shop. So go check them out today. Start that family tradition off of Chippewa and find out why Ted Drew's famous frozen custard really is good guys and gals.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 10 minutes, we'll get into our football pick'em reveal from last week. How did we all do in our pick'em challenge? We'll get into that coming up here in just a little bit. But Alex, every offseason, we like to do something around here called Choose Your Own Adventures. Some of the listeners may have been young and read the books called Choose Your Own Adventure, where you go through, you get to the end of the page, and then you get to determine what the next path forward is by going to that specific page within the book. Depending on what the next page is, it will have a different ending from what you or T-Bone or me have. All of us could have a different ending in that scenario, all right?
Question,
So,
are we going to play this like the rules that I used to play, where if my finger was still on the page, I can go back to the page I was on?
No. That was a very different rule book. I don't know how you could do that. That is completely...
You cheated in Choose Your Own Adventure?
No, it's not cheating.
Unbelievable. You are the worst.
I followed the rules that I created for Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yeah, that is very different than what you were actually supposed to do there, but neither here nor there.
You guys make up your own rules.
The rules for Choose Your Own Adventure, for me, are very simple. I'm putting together a mock offseason for the Cardinals. I'm trying to utilize their own parameters. We're not spending $100 million this offseason for the 2024 payroll. They're not going to do that. So it serves us no good in doing so. So I'm going to try to stay within the $50 million budget that they have allotted for this offseason. But within that budget, we can make some moves, right? We can make some trades. We can sign some guys. We can go out there and do different things. So I'm trying to use the projections that we've seen elsewhere. I'm trying to use the baseball trade values that we see elsewhere. So I'm trying to put this together in as realistic of a way as I possibly can. I've got 4 different scenarios, Alex, that we'll get into over the next 4 days. The first one I'm calling Singing for Snell. The reason why
He's
is because
so proud of that, by the way.
it opens up by signing Blake Snell to be your number 1 starter. Ooh. Now, it ended up being expensive, boys. Aww. You're giving him a 6th year on this contract. It is $168 million in total, $28 million per year. So you're open this bad boy up. We have basically shot our wad with one guy at the front end of the rotation for the Cardinals.
You can never do that on the first try, man.
Now, this is going to make things very difficult from there, because now you can't really go out there and add significant payroll year to year for the next few players that you're going to sign. So you got to go a little light with the rest of your options. We're going to make a couple of trades to make up for that. Our number 2 starter, we are trading Dylan Carlson and Gordon Graceffo for Tyler Glasnow. Tyler Glasnow is going to be a Cardinal along with Blake Snell. Talk about some swing and miss at the front end of that rotation.
In a very volatile rotation.
Yeah, Jesus. Yep. This team's going to have no starting pitchers by June.
Everybody hang on. This is going to be a roller coaster.
Yep. It's going to be something, that's for sure. All right. Next decision that they have made. They're making another trade, boys. Yes. We have made 2 trades in the offseason. This is a man that T-Bone tried to get for us last year at the trade deadline. Paul Blackburn is going to be a Cardinal as well. Now, this is, again, for those of you that are just tuning in, a mock offseason. I'm not breaking any news here. In this scenario, the Cardinals traded Alec Burleson for Paul Blackburn. Blackburn has 2 years of club control remaining. He's projected to make about $3 million this year via the arbitration process. And then in order to make up for that, where we've got a couple of guys that are questionable at best when it comes to how many innings you're getting. You have signed Sean Manaea as a depth starter / swingman. He can go into your bullpen, or he can be a part of your rotation if needed. 1-year deal worth $12 million is ultimately what that came to. You got like a club option, mutual option for year 2, but it's $12 million for Sean Manaea. And then the final move of the offseason to add one more bullpen arm. You're trading Tyler O'Neill. I don't have a name for you. They got a reliever in return. They went out and they got a depth bullpen arm. They're mostly getting rid of him for money, okay? Depth. So your offseason in option number 1, this scenario. You signed Blake Snell, $28 million per year. It's a 6-year contract. You traded Dylan Carlson and Gordon Graceffo, and you got Tyler Glasnow, the pitcher from the Tampa Bay Rays. He's going to make $25 million. You traded Alec Burleson. You got Paul Blackburn, decent depth option in your rotation. And then you signed Sean Manaea as one reliever, and you traded Tyler O'Neill for another. Let's call it one of the guys from the Yankees. They ended up giving you a depth reliever from them. Somebody that you probably have never heard of, but is going to be like the 7th guy in your bullpen next year. Alex, T-Bone, text line 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. How would you feel about that offseason? Snell, Glasnow, Blackburn, Manaea as the main options that you added.
I like it, but I don't love it. Like, I would exit that offseason thinking, okay, you addressed your major problem with the 2 swing and miss stuff. Your pitching rotation is about as nasty as you can ask for. but I still feel like I'm missing something. And I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just the uncertainty of both Snell and Glasnow knowing that, like, hey, this might combust by June, and now we're talking about still having no pitching. I like it on the surface, though. Like, I'd walk away from that offseason being like, damn, okay, looking pretty good, Cardinals. But, like, by June, I think I'm a little more concerned.
So I like the additions to the rotation. Like, I think that's a really good offseason. And he didn't give up a lot for Glasnow. I know a lot of people would say, well, you gave up Carlson. Yeah, he didn't have a role here. And if you're bringing in starting pitching, it's okay to move on from one of your prospects. So it's okay to move on from a Graceffo. The area that I have some serious concern about is the bullpen is not good enough. And Manaea, he's kind of a swingman at this point in his career. I know he came out of the bullpen last year. I think he's still hoping he can start. But I'm not that in on Manaea. And then this bullpen arm that you just acquired for the Yankees, like, it's just a depth move. You're still missing a significant bullpen arm, in my opinion. That would be my one concern with this offseason, is that you're really going to have to be – if you go this route, you have to be willing to potentially admit by the time we get to July, we've got to go all in on bullpen arms at the trade deadline, which maybe they want to do that, but that would be something that would concern me, is this bullpen is going to be very thin. I like the rotation, but it's very volatile as well. If you got a volatile rotation – you're going to have to rely on some of the depth guys, which then also means you're relying on 5-inning guys, which means you got to rely on the bullpen. So I can see where this could have a massive trickle-down effect in a negative way.
High upside, or low floor. That's what this offseason would be. The upside is, man, we just signed a number one starter in Blake Snell, traded for another number one starter in Tyler Glasnow, and got a guy in Paul Blackburn that's been pretty good. Like, he's kind of similar to what you have currently with Miles Michaelis in terms of throwing a bunch of innings, not necessarily being a huge strikeout guy, but maybe gets more than what you were expecting out of him. And ERA-wise, has been really good for the A's over the last few seasons. So I think you may end up getting a little bit more than what you expected for there. By the way, people that are wondering, hey, how did you end up staying under $50 million? You non-tender
Deferred
Dakota
money,
Hudson.
it's fine.
You end up going a little cheaper in year one on a couple of these deals. Like, there are ways that you can get around this. I basically added like $55 million. Just non-tender Dakota Hudson. Boom, you got there. Like, you're good. It's fine. But that's the way that you go about this in terms of the money situation. I wouldn't love this offseason. I think that this is something that would appeal to a lot of fans. I would not love it, because I think there is too much risk that is baked in. This is a team that has had too much risk in the rotation in previous seasons for different reasons. They didn't have the upside baked into it. But I don't love the addition of both Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow. I don't. I would want one of them into your rotation. I'm totally good with. If this team trades for Tyler Glasnow, I will support it. I think it's a really good move, because I think he's an excellent pitcher when he's healthy. But if you do that, I think you're committing to getting somebody else that is a little more certainty. I think by adding Tyler Glasnow, I actually think it allows you to go into that second-tier market and get like a Jordan Montgomery or a Sonny Gray, because those guys have a little more certainty that they provide to you. And I think Tyler Glasnow ends up becoming the number one starter that you sign this offseason, and it takes you out of that Blake Snell market. So this would not be my ideal scenario going into the offseason. I do understand, though, how it could appeal to somebody, because, man, you want to talk about swing and miss stuff. You added it in spades in a way that you have not had in years here in St. Louis. So it's fun. It's interesting. It's certainly exciting. I think it just contains way too much risk for me. Paul Blackburn is one of those guys that we have not talked a lot about when it comes to the trade market, guys. I thought MLB Trade Rumors came out with an interesting list yesterday of their top 25 best trade targets going into the offseason, Alex. They have the typical names that we've been talking about. Tyler Glasnow's on here. Blackburn was on there. The Mariners pitchers, Brian Wu, Bryce Miller, Logan Gilbert, Dylan Cease, Corbin Burns. They did have one other name, though, that I was curious how you guys feel about him, because we haven't really spent any conversation on him whatsoever this offseason. It's Nick Pivetta. He is a Red Sox starting pitcher. If you guys remember, I think it was like 2 years ago, he had an unbelievable start against the Cardinals. And ever since then, I've just kind of been smitten by him as a pitcher. He's spent some time in the bullpen, a lot of time as a starter, though, out there in Boston. He's had some really good strikeout rates in previous seasons. The numbers have never really matched the eye test in terms of the ERA. It's always been around 4 to 4.5. If he is truly available this offseason, I would be interested in adding him. I don't know what the asking price would be, but that is a guy that we have spent basically zero time talking about that I think would be a really good addition for the Cardinals this offseason.
Yeah, this is the part for me that, like, I don't know who it is, and it might be a Nick Pivetta, but it's got to be somebody that you don't hear a lot of people talk about for your bullpen. It's got to be somebody like a Nick Pivetta that flies under the radar of items that upgrade your bullpen that the Cardinals can go in and sign and not have to break the bank for. And I like the Nick Pivetta one. There's a couple of others that this is the hard part because I've looked through the free agents and you look at the name and you're like, no, that doesn't really make this bullpen better. But this is the challenge for the Cardinals that they have not been able to accomplish year after year after year. And it's finding that low-key bullpen arm who can step in.
Yeah, I really like Pivetta if you were to trade for him because I don't think he's going to cost you a lot. And you're right, when you look at the numbers, ERA doesn't really match the eye test as well. And he is a perfect kind of swing man that you could bring in. And even if you don't want to be a swing man, you could just say, you know what, let's have him as a starter. So I like the idea of Pivetta because he's got swing and miss. He's got upside for a number 5, and not in terms of what he's got long term in upside because he is 31 years old this year.
I told you could get Pivetta for Dylan Carlson.
I'd be in.
Oh, yeah. That would be the move.
Because
I think that's kind of the range that he's probably in, right? He's got one more year of control, so you're not getting a ton of control here. He's 30 years old. He's never had great seasons when it comes to the actual ERA, those kinds of things. I think Alec Burleson, Dylan Carlson, those are the kinds of names that you would probably be seeing connected in a spot like this.
It might be one of the best available swingmen that you could use in both spots that's available this offseason.
Projected to make $7.5 million, so it's not like you're spending an arm and a leg to be able to acquire him. I really like this option. He's a name that I hadn't considered because I didn't think that the Red Sox would be interested in trading him, but if they are, I think he makes a ton of sense for this team.
I would agree with that. And $7.5 million, that's going to be cheaper than most of the swingmen.
Cheaper than what I think that Manaea is going to get.
Yeah, Manaea, I think I saw the projection from Kylie McDaniel. I think it's $12 million.
Well, what about
Nick
Michael
Martinez,
Wacha?
$10 million.
People brought
He's
up
going to be
Wacha.
$10 million. He is cheaper by about $3 to $5 million than what most of these swing guys are that are going to be on the market. So if it just costs you a Carlson, whoever it might be that doesn't have a role here for next year, or if their role is kind of blurred and they got to win a job in camp, yeah, go make that move. I would support the idea of bringing in a Pivetta because he's got swing and miss that you're looking for.
Yeah, I don't know what the Red Sox situation looks like in the outfield. I know that they're probably going to be moving on this offseason from Alex Verdugo, so maybe they're looking for more of a left-handed bat. So maybe in that scenario, you'd be looking more at Burleson than you are at Dylan Carlson. But and I understand Dylan Carlson technically a switch hitter, but you guys understand how this works. I would look at this if I was the Cardinals. He would be a name that I would be looking to potentially acquire if we end up going big for a number 1 starter and don't have a ton of money left over for the 2 or 3 starters that are available. Something like a Nick Pivetta as the 3rd best starter, Tyler Glasnow as the number 2, and Aaron Nola as the number 1. Man, that would be a really, really interesting offseason. Or if they went Glasnow, Sonny Gray, Pivetta, that would be a trio of guys that I would be interested in going into next year.
I still like the idea of getting Alec Manoah as that 5th guy and then having a Nick Pivetta or something like that as the swingman for you, where you're using him in the bullpen, but you know he's available.
If I told you can only get one because you're only trading one of the outfield, Dylan Carlson is the guy that both teams want, let's say, would you rather have Pivetta or Alec Manoah?
I think I'd rather have Manoah just because that upside is a legit ace number 2.
Obviously, a lot of this it depends on what the supporting cast is. If you end up with Snell and Glasnow, I'm definitely going Pivetta because I need some certainty here. But
if I could get Nola or Gray and then another guy who's a number 2,
in that scenario, I would definitely rather have Manoah because of the upside. But I think in general, if we're just talking about in a vacuum, I think I would rather have Pivetta than Manoah. Just because of the amount of uncertainty surrounding Manoah, where I don't know what he's going to be next year.
That's kind of where I am. Unless you sign an Aaron Nola or someone 2 guys at the top that you feel pretty much like there is certainty, then I'd be more willing to take the risk on the 5 and go with Manoah. But as you said, in the vacuum, I'd probably go Pivetta because I feel like he's a little bit easier to project than Alec Manoah.
Yeah, if you get Nola, it opens up a lot about what you can do with your number 5 starter, because now I'm willing to take on a lot of risk there. Yeah. I'm willing to take on a Tyler Mahle, a Manoah, somebody that is just
2 innings eaters at the top in Nola and Michael
Severino, who Alex has brought up a lot. One of those guys that has upside that I have no idea if they're going to be able to reach it or not. I'm probably betting on them. Maybe even in this scenario, T-Bone, this is where you get into your James Paxton conversation, where
no, he's too
healthy, could be really good, but I'm betting on a lot of risk here. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, if you could make one addition to the Blues this year, one addition, let's talk hypothetically speaking. what would you want it to be? Is there a position? Is there a specific type of player? Who would you be looking to add to this core group of players for 2023? We'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes or so. But coming up next, it's time for our football pick'em reveal here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It is time for Some of us, our favorite segment of the week, our football pick'em reveal. Every Thursday or Friday, depending on if somebody's going to be out on Friday, we will make our picks going into the weekend. It's a very simple game. Each of us get 3 selections. The game has to be done by the time that we get on the air on Monday morning. So Saturday or Sunday game typically is what you're going with here. And it's got to be against the spread. No player props, no over-unders, anything like that. It's got to be against the spread. You label them in a 1 to 3 points. By the end of the month, we will decide who is the winner based on who had the most points at the end of that month. So far this month, I was in the lead. It's only been 1 week, 5 points out of the potential 6 in week 1. Alex was in second with 4 points, and T-Bone was in third with
upside
3
down.
points. So let's start with the man that was at the back end of this group going into the weekend. T-Bone getting things started with an NFL pick for us.
My 1 point play. I warned Alex about this last week. I've warned you guys ever since I joined the show.
I have.
One day you will listen. This week it's going to happen again. San Francisco's going west to east. Give me Jacksonville +3 against the San Francisco 49ers.
That's a stupid, bold bet to take.
Second down and short here. Purdy has one-on-one. George Kittle, goodbye! Heave-ho and a touchdown!
So the West Coast to East Coast.
Is that dead now? Can we go ahead and put that to
it's
an end?
not dead. 2 things happened in that game.
It only affects
One,
talented teams.
San Fran was coming off their bye, and 2, Jacksonville just sucks. Okay, so that's why that result
So it only
happened.
affects teams that lack talent.
Exactly, and
Good.
Jacksonville's that team.
Good.
Bad quarterback,
good.
no weapons.
Yeah, could we just get rid of this stupid narrative now?
I couldn't believe that you picked that game. Really, it was shocking.
Now, I cut out the part where you said you almost took that game. So
You took that solely
pipe
off
it
of
down over there.
You took that solely off of principle, just because you wanted to act like your point was correct. That's why you took that.
I guess we'll find out who's in second place when this is done, won't we?
All right, let's get to Alex's first pick. This is your big one, Alex. You felt good about it, and it worked out for you.
And I'm taking the line. -3 on the road in LA. Don't care because the Lions are the better team.
3rd and 1. Montgomery is the tailback. They fake it. The great fake. Over the top they go. And it's a touchdown. Brock Wright.
Well, they did win by 3. Unfortunately, in our pick'em, that counts as a loss for you, buddy.
Yep. Well, I'll take the push, but doesn't get much out of it. Next year, maybe we could change the rules to like half the points, for a push. So I got like 1.5 points out of
You
that.
either cover or you don't, and you did not cover in this one, my friend. You got to push, which means that you get your money back, which is great. You just don't get any points for it. It was a good pick. I liked the Lions. They looked great in that game. Lions are legit. That offense is really, really good.
Not legit enough, though.
Not
Great
quite
teams
legit
covered,
enough.
and they did not cover.
And that's what my team did. I went to the Saturday slate. I got a little risky this weekend by going with some college football games, and this one paid off for me. I have been told all year by everybody who will say it that Michigan is the best team in the country based on what they have done against the bad opponents on their schedule. I like Michigan minus the 4.5 points on the road at Penn State.
All right, I love Michigan in this one because Penn State struggled with Ohio State, and I think Ohio State's a fraud in the college football playoff. So I think Michigan's going to beat the door off of them. So I like it 4.5.
Corum with a hole down the sideline. Gonna get there. Blake for great. Touchdown, Wolverine. 30 yards.
Was there ever a point in time where you thought that was not going to go your way, T-Bone? Because I did not.
No.
Not like literally 0 seconds of that game did I think Penn State's going to win this thing. They had no chance. They could not throw the football at all. They were afraid of the forward pass. And until the final drive of that game, I think they had like 40 yards through the air. They finished the day with 74 yards through the air for Penn State. It was embarrassing.
Then they fired their OC.
That's America's team right there.
Michigan won that game by throwing 8 passes and gaining 60 yards through the air because they didn't have to. And they knew all day long, we don't have to throw the ball. We're just better than this team. We're just flat out better. We're going to go into their building, kick their ass, and go home as a top 3 team in the country with a game coming up in a couple of weeks against Ohio State.
Michigan is by far the best team in college football, and it's kind of annoying.
America's team.
That was amazing.
I hate them.
That post-game
Nothing better than
interview
a
was incredible.
head coach who's suspended and just America's team.
All right, T-Bone also went with a college football pick. He had Michigan, so congratulations to you, my friend. You also had another one in the SEC.
I thought Bama was a okay football team early on. and they have turned a corner, and they look like a potential, we talked about them yesterday, contender for the college football playoff. Give me the Bama -11 at Kentucky.
And now trying to direct traffic and gets it complete to Williams, and Williams is able to turn the corner and score it for Alabama.
Remember when I told you a couple of weeks ago the stat about Kentucky, how they've had like 3 wins against teams that had a winning record in conference since Mark Stoops has arrived?
Still holds up.
Yeah, that was one of those games where you watch it and you're like, oh, one of these teams is just way better than the other.
Yep.
There was never a doubt. From the moment that the ball was kicked, Alabama just beat the snot out of them.
Yeah, I think at one point, did they get it to like 14? I was like, okay, this is getting interesting. And then like Bama just went on a drive, and I was like, yeah, no, never mind.
Bama was just waiting around to run away with it the rest of the game.
Yeah, it was 21-7, and then Bama goes down 5 plays, 62 yards, touchdown, turnover on downs, and then boom, game over. There.
Good.
That was a shellacking.
All right, next one up is a game that I had immense confidence in, and I don't know that I had enough confidence in it. Let's go to the NFL slate. I am now going to make a ballsy move. Dallas wins this one 41-3. They put them away early. It never ends up being close. You could make this line as big as you possibly wanted to. I would take the Cowboys.
Prescott going for Cooks. He's got it. Touchdown, Dallas.
They won 49-17.
I'm surprised they gave up 17 points. Tommy DeVito,
10
ladies
of
and
those
gentlemen.
came in the final 6 minutes of the game when the game was well out of hand. It was 42-7 late in the fourth quarter. At that point, the Cowboys had their backups in. They treated it as a high school game where the other team was just completely inferior to you.
I feel bad for my guy.
Never once was that in doubt.
Can we talk about Dak Prescott right now? Because this feels like the Charlie Brown thing where, like, the last few weeks, like, Dak Prescott is loosey holding the football, being like, come on. And then, like, the next game, when I'm confident that they're going to cover, that's when the football gets picked up and Dak throws 5 interceptions.
Dak's been really good this year, outside of one game. He had the one game against the 49ers, which is his kryptonite. He can never play well against the 49ers, but this is who Dak Prescott is, guys. He's a really good quarterback that is not quite at the elite level tier. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He is in that second tier of quarterbacks. If you had, like, a decision tomorrow to win a football game, would you rather have Josh Allen or Dak Prescott? I think there's a conversation to be had. I do. And I think he's in that tier of quarterbacks. They're both mistake prone, but when you get into the game, you feel pretty good about having either of those two guys. I think that's the tier that he should be involved in.
I know people are giving, what's his face on ESPN Get Up. I forgot what his name was, but he basically
Orlovsky?
No, it wasn't Orlovsky.
Ryan Clark?
No.
Marcus Spears?
Hold on, keep going. Another shorter dude.
All right, let's just get to the next pick. This is sad.
Regardless, he said Dak Prescott's the best quarterback right now in the game, and he got a lot of slack for it. At least, like, in the last 3 weeks, he's been one of the best.
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. He's not better than Joe Burrow. He's not better than Patrick Mahomes, but he's been really good.
Right now, he has been.
Yeah. You wouldn't take him over those guys, though.
No, long term, but, like, this season, he's been better than...
Hey, if you want to have a conversation about which quarterback has been the best, like, it starts with C.J. Stroud, and then we can have our conversation from there. Yeah. None of them are deserving of winning the MVP, though. All right, next one up here is Alex, who went against his own gut and paid the price for it.
But my 2-point play is the Ravens at home against the Cleveland Browns. It's 6.5. I think Baltimore wins that by more than 7. I've been betting against Baltimore this season, but I can't do it anymore.
Hopkins from 40 for the win. It is good.
Once again, hey, come kick the football. We're really good. We're really good. I heard Kerry say last week, like, I hate picking, but the Ravens are the best team. And then they lifted the football up. The dude had a 3.6 QBR rating in the fourth quarter. Like, how is that even possible? He forgot how to quarterback for a quarter.
Well, it happens.
Every
dude
time
looked like
you
two
think
Josh Allens.
Every time you think that they've figured it out in Baltimore, you're like, all right, this is the week I can trust them.
I'm done.
It is amazing how quickly they went from, like, boy, I don't know if I trust Baltimore to, look, they are the best team in the AFC.
I mean,
and then they blew it to Cleveland.
They beat the hell out of Detroit. Then they absolutely demolished Seattle. And then they figured out a way to lose at home against Cleveland. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Is the best in the AFC, and their offense is too damn inconsistent to trust.
Defense didn't look great yesterday.
Well, no, it didn't. But neither did but all season, like consistently, at least the defense has kept them in games. Offensively, one week you'll get an MVP, Lamar Jackson. The other week you'll get a guy who just throws it wherever.
I can't explain it, man.
That one pissed me off more than the last one.
Goes the other way from Alex. So
like you had it.
There.
You were up by 3 touchdowns.
That's a shame.
And then Lamar Jackson. Woo.
I said it with my chest, and I believed it. And on Saturday, I earned that victory. I'm sure there's going to be some fans that are upset at me. I don't care. I'm taking the Missouri Tigers plus the 2 points at home against Tennessee.
Milton looks right the whole way, and it's intercepted. Picked off. This will be a pick 6 for Dalen Carnell. Touchdown, Missouri.
That was so satisfying.
That was a shellacking.
That one again.
From start to
never
finish.
Doubted it.
Missouri was just better. They were just better. And they did the thing that Tennessee was supposed to come in and do, and they did it better than them. They ran the ball down their throat from start to finish. And then Alex, at the end of the game, Eli Drinkwitz was like, we're going to keep this thing going. Full throttle, baby. We remember what you did last year to us. We're going to keep the foot down on the gas. We're going to give the ball to Cody Schrader, who's been just running it down your throat all day long. And then the post-game interview after, where Drinkwitz saying we kicked their ass and talking about Cody Schrader. Just
turn the favor.
College football coaches are so petty. They remember things, and it's great. I love it.
I loved it so much. Everything about that game was spectacular. Brady Cook with a really good day. One weird pass. It was tipped. Didn't go his way. But other than that, was as efficient as you could possibly get over the course of the day. And Cody Schrader, somebody asked earlier about him being in the Heisman conversation. I'm not willing to go that far, but God, he's been awesome. This is one of those seasons that you'll always remember if you're a Mizzou fan. We'll get into that a little bit more later on, but that was a nice win. All right, final one here. Alex, your 1 point play, according to you, has some controversy surrounding it. So we'll be sure to answer those questions coming up here in just a second.
All right, my 1 point play. I'm sticking like I've done all season long. I'm staying in the NFL. And boys,
paid off well.
He's back. Kyler bleeping Murray.
Is that good?
I'm taking Arizona plus 1.5. I've
got this line at +2.
I've got it at +2 as well.
I'll take a +2.
Snap, spot, kick is away, and it is good. On the final play of the game, Matt Prater wins it for Arizona.
Wait, why? Wait, hold on. We just learned right now, after 48 hours, you won this pick.
There's no
because you guys told me I lost it.
No, I was going off of you telling me that you lost it.
The text I got says Ferrario 1 and 2 that I pushed on that one.
That was from him.
That's the text I received. So I just assumed that's what it was.
Good work.
Yeah, got your 1 point play.
Yeah,
that doesn't matter.
Good work.
Not too controversial.
I wasn't even really going to fight it anymore because the line really. So what happened was I look at it the night before and I write down the 4 games, but then the line always moves. I understand that. And so before we started that segment, I pulled it up on my DraftKings app and it had it at 1.5, but you guys had the FanDuel and the FanDuel did have it at 2 when we made the pick. So I can't really push back too much.
For the last
Either
24
way, it does
hours.
not matter.
Yeah. For the last 24 hours.
That's the last time I look at the text on the thread that says Ferrario 1 and 2.
We mixed up. We thought it was Cardinals -2 because why the hell would
Cardinals
Atlanta be favored?
+2.
And it was actually Cardinals +2. So if it was Arizona -2, he would have pushed. But instead he gets a win. So congrats, my man.
That's a nice win for you.
Yeah, you got a point.
1-0-2 for Alex Ferrario.
Once again, why the Ravens game really pisses me off.
1-1-1 actually is what your final result was for the week, Alex. You had 1 point, so you're up to 5 on on this 1 month stretch. T-Bone went 2 for 3, added 5 points, so you were up to 8 points in this stretch.
You want to double check the math?
No, I believe him.
I went 3 for 3, got all 6 points that were available to me this week. I am now 5 for my last 6 picks. We are on a bit of a heater over here, boys. I have 11 points so far in this 2-week stretch out of the month. I'm pretty sure 11 points would have made me safe last month. So we're in a good spot over here after 2 weeks.
I think 10's kind of like the safe spot.
Yeah.
It has been the last 2 times, I think.
So fingers crossed we can continue going there. Alex, how'd you feel about your performance this week?
Well, I was more upset before I learned that I actually won that last one. But again, the one that pisses me off is that Ravens game. That's the one that, irks me about as much as you can ask for.
11-8-5. That's where the standings are going into a important week 3 in our football pick'em challenge. By the way, next week, Alex, I think we're going to have to pick games on Wednesday. Because Thursday is Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, who's out? But yeah, we all
I'm
are.
technically out Tuesday, Wednesday, but I'll be able to call it on Wednesday.
The first games that we will be able to select are on the Thursday slate. So we will have those Thursday games available this time around, and we'll reveal that the following week. That will be the final week of this month's football pick'em. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll get into the junk drawer. But next, if you could make one addition, Alex, to the Blues, what would it be? We'll get into it next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action today as they host the Tampa Bay Lightning. And we'll have pregame coverage tonight starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find a road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Blues are playing better, which means instead of talking about removing players from this roster, Alex, it's time to start talking about adding to the current mix of players. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up at the top of the hour, it'll be Jeremy Rutherford joining the show. Alex, there was a report over the weekend that Nikita Zadorov, the defenseman for the Calgary Flames, he has requested, maybe even demanded, a trade from Calgary. He no longer wants to be there. He sees what's going on. He sees the writing on the wall. This is not heading in a direction that anybody wants it to. He wants out as soon as humanly possible, pending UFA. And I thought to myself, man, that's a guy that I would be interested in. But then I thought about it a little bit further, and I was thinking, man, is a left-handed defenseman actually the number one need for this team right now? It was coming into the season. Is it today? I don't know. So it made me think, if you could add one position, player, type of player to this current Blues roster, Alex, what would it be?
For me, it would be either a left or a right winger who can be a goal-scoring 200-foot player. And I know that sounds really specific, but my thought process with this is I'm looking for somebody who can play either on my second or third line right now on the wing, because I think the line combination of Thomas, Booch, and Kapanen is working really well. Kyrou and Shen are playing well together. I like Saad there, but I think Saad would be a upgrade over a Verana on the third line with a Hayes and Toropchenko, or if you want to put Saad with Neighbors at some point. But I'm looking at either getting somebody who could play with Shen and Kyrou or somebody who could play with Hayes and whomever else. That would be the position that I would try and upgrade right now. Would I love a left-handed defenseman? Absolutely. I'd love to get somebody who could play with Colton Parayko 23, 25 minutes a night. But I'm not sure you can do that at a trade deadline. So I would say if you're going to try and do some type of slight upgrade to this roster, it would be finding somebody who can identify more with this group, like a Jakub Verana.
I think I would be looking for someone that is more of a playmaker on the second line to pair with Kyrou, whether that is a winger or a centerman. Because we talked about this yesterday. I think it was during in or out, Alex. Can Thomas get to the 90-point threshold? I think he can right now the way he's playing, because it looks like he's going to be more of a goal scorer this year. On top of that, he's got a guy that can score on his line in Pavel Buchnevich. What's the thing that I think is potentially holding Jordan Kyrou back? Well, one, he's going through a rut right now, but I expect that to turn around. But two, I just don't know if he's got the playmaker on the line with him. And that's not saying that I'm looking to move on from Shen. I'm trying to either keep Shen as the center on that line with another winger with him and bump Saad down to the third line, who then takes that spot of Vrana, or somehow you either move Shen down to the third line and you have a better centerman upgrade with him. But that's what I would be looking for. Is I think that second line is missing another punch to it with Jordan Kyrou there to help not just the offense as a whole in your top six, but also to help get Kyrou's game to the next level.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar spot to both of you. I think it's a forward. I think you need one more guy that can really help you out. And I think the place where I would put him is probably on that second line, ideally on the left side. I would like to see Brandon Saad drop down to that third line as a winger with Kevin Hayes, and now you've got a group of players that you can really kind of believe in there. I like Booch, Thomas, and Kapanen. I think that's worked out pretty well. You've got the combination of Booch and Thomas that I think is really what you're building around there, and Kapanen's been more than fine with those two. Shin and Kyrou, I think will ultimately be fine long term. You need one more guy, though, that creates a little bit of space, a little bit of time for those two players. And what I would like to bring there is just an all-around 200-foot guy that's going to play really well. Honestly, Brandon Saad's not all that dissimilar from what I'm talking about here, but just a little better. A slightly better version of what you're getting currently out of Brandon Saad. And if you could get that, I think we're talking about a playoff team, Alex. I don't know about a championship contender. I think they're a pretty decent ways away from that. But a legitimate playoff contender that maybe has a chance to be able to win in the first round of the postseason. I think that's what you're trying to do.
I think your team is considered up there with all of these other teams if you can find somebody to solidify that top nine. Because to me, if you keep Verana or if you trade Verana and bring a forward in, let's go down that path because you got to make salary cap work. You bring in that forward to play with Shannon Kyrou. Saad moves down to play with Kevin Hayes, and you put a Jake Neighbors there or a Toropchenko there if things are going right. That's a line that's top to bottom really dangerous. And to me right now, not that the third line is or isn't, but you just don't have that finish right now with Toropchenko and Hayes and Verana. And maybe they get going, but that's the route that I would go. I know you can't make it work, but honestly, Connor Garland would be somebody that matches the identity of this team. And if you're going long-term, you hope Jimmy Snuggerud takes that spot next year to play with Shannon Kyrou. Saad dips down and you find somebody else to play in that position. But for right now, yeah, that's the position that I would target, not so much left-handed defenseman.
I mentioned Zadorov. I would still be fine with bringing him in. I don't know how you'd make it work money-wise. You'd probably have to send out a Scandella, somebody like that, to be able to make the money work going both ways. Maybe Calgary would even be willing to eat some of the money to be able to get a better asset in return. But I don't think that's a move that the Blues are likely to make. Alex, the other move that's been out there and rumored, and somebody on the text line asked us about this, 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line. The 314 says, guys, if Edmonton rumors are true about wanting Binnington, would you be up for packaging one of the defensemen with him, probably somebody like Parayko, and in return asking for a guy like Draisaitl? Now, that's not going to do it. That's not what either team is likely to do this year. If a Draisaitl trade is coming, it's probably next offseason. Mm-hmm. However, let's set that aside. The Binnington stuff. We addressed this last week and said, not happening, shouldn't happen. That guy is on a no-trade list, basically, for me, if I'm in charge of the Blues. We could just dismiss this outright.
Yeah.
Correct?
I think we absolutely need to. I think everybody, if it's in your thought process, and let's understand where this came from. Elliot Friedman and his 32 Thoughts brought it up, and what he brought up and presented was that Edmonton researched this in years past. Not that they're calling right now about Jordan Binnington. They've done this in the past. And remember, it was a couple of years ago, we were out in Alton for March Madness when the trade deadline was around the corner, and the reports were that the Blues were researching giving up Jordan Binnington in a trade. Why? Because he was struggling. This sets your team back a couple of years in this retool if you move Jordan Binnington. So you're in a position now where you are much better off than most teams because you have two goaltenders that you trust. That's the way of the NHL. But you don't just ship one out because one guy looks like he's the future. You ship one guy out when the guy's ready to take control of the team now. You're not there yet with Joel Hofer. And if you want this retool to end faster, you need two goaltenders that you can trust. So everybody would love a Draisaitl for Jordan Binnington trade. It's not happening, so write that one off right now. And anything else, you're not trading Jordan Binnington.
If Vasilevsky instead will probably be on the move to Edmonton. The Blues are in action tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Pre-game with Alex for Blues versus the Lightning coming up tonight right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. 6 o'clock is when the pregame starts for that one. Coming up in about 10 minutes or so, we'll continue talking about the Blues with Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. But next, Alex, I had a moment over the weekend while I was down in Austin where I was like, I just pulled an Alex. I'll explain how in the Juncture next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So as many of you know, I was out over the weekend in Austin. We had a great time. Baby boy had his first trip. First of all, I had no idea how the plane rides were going to go, there or back. Alex, we got on the plane around 9:30 p.m. on the way down there. That is basically Luca's bedtime. He was wide awake as we were getting onto the plane. I was like, oh, God.
Yep, that's not good.
This is going to be a disaster. I'm not kidding. As we started to take off, did a quick feed, boom, out. The entire duration of the flight. The entire way there, completely out, no issues whatsoever.
You did it right.
I was like, whoa, babe. We did it. We found a way. This ended up working out. Then we get to the airport in Austin, wide awake. Wide awake for the next, 2.5 hours, and it totally threw off the sleep schedule, but it was fine. Everything ended up working out fine.
Oh, God, that sounds like a nightmare. What time did you guys actually go to sleep?
3 o'clock.
Holy Jesus.
Roughly.
And that kid was up by what, 6:30? 7?
Yeah, in some naps here and there within, but yeah.
Vacation.
Yeah, exactly. A vacation changes a little bit when you have a kid, T-Bone. That's what I learned over the weekend.
I've learned you stopped taking vacations.
In the middle of the day that we took. We went back to the Airbnb for an hour and a half or so.
Shocker.
It ended up being a blast. We had a great time down there. On the way back, Luca great the entire time. Last 10 minutes, ear started hurting. Was not thrilled. Was not thrilled.
Were there a lot of people on the flight?
It was relatively empty. There was 40 seats.
So you're good there then,
open,
too.
So we had a spot for him. But anyways, I did have a Alex moment while I was on vacation, and I'm not proud of it.
Good for you.
No, not good for him.
I am not proud of it at all. So, Alex, I am not an aggressive driver. I am not somebody that shouts or screams when I drive. I don't have what I would consider to be road rage. I, generally speaking, kind of go with the flow, right? I don't know that I've ever shouted while in the car while driving with Kara in the car, ever. Until this weekend.
My wife sends me news articles about people that get hurt in road rage accidents, so it goes to show you how I drive.
Until this weekend. This weekend, I had my first moment. So first of all, driving in Austin is a freaking nightmare. Yeah. That's what I learned. It is a disaster.
Why should do?
I think it's Texas in general. Texas is not
a
fun place to drive.
So we couldn't Uber because we had baby boy. We had his
car seat
that we had to get in and out, and then we have his massive stroller that we were taking places with us as well. Uber not an option, so we had to rent a car while we were down there. Driving it is. So we're leaving dinner. This is Saturday night, Alex, and we're in the heart of downtown, getting ready to go back to our Uber, and I get stuck. I'm behind this bus in the right lane.
Oh.
And they stop because they're at a bus stop. So there's a car in front of me. That's the reason why I didn't notice that they were going to be stopping in the first place. There's a truck in front of me, kind of blocked our point of view, right? So we stop. The guy in front of me immediately pulls out. He's able to get to the left. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to find it. Nothing available. Just cars, just constantly passing us. So I'm like, all right, we'll just wait. We'll see what ends up opening up here. Wait a minute or two. Finally, there's an opening. Well, the guy behind me pulls out before I can, so he gets going. I'm like, okay, it's fine. We'll wait for the next opening. Wait another minute or two. Immediately upon there being an opening and the car passing this guy, phew, he gets going.
Oh.
All right, I'll wait for the next one. But this time I'm going to be aggressive. This is my opportunity, right? I've got to go.
Oh, boy.
So I start getting aggressive.
When you turn to your wife and go, hold on to your stuff.
Yeah, and I got Luca in the car behind me, so I'm like, oh, God, I have to be careful here.
Oh, boy.
So I get ready to turn. The guy, again, right behind me in this lane of cars that's waiting for this damn bus to get going. At this point, it's been 5 minutes that I've been sitting behind it. I'm furious. The car behind me starts to go right as I do, and I get aggressive this time, Alex. I pull an Alex, and I'm like, this is my turn. I whip it around.
Mm-hmm.
They start blaring on their horn and start getting ready to almost hit me. I'm like, all right, it's my turn. I'm hitting the horn. I'm screaming. I'm hollering.
Sign of a desperate man when you start the horn.
I have never been more mad in my car than I was in that exact moment. I was heated, dude.
Yeah.
Heated. I thought about going after him. It was bad, man.
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't know what I was going to do. I can accomplish nothing by going out and trying to find this guy, but I was... I calmed down about 2 or 3 minutes later, was able to finally get myself into a place where I said, honey, I'm sorry. That was completely unnecessary, but I felt it was necessary in the moment. She said, oh, you don't have to apologize to me. I do that all the time.
See, I never
Karen and I are on the same page then.
I'm never that way in the car, even if I was stuck like that. When I've been stuck.
That's because you're probably the guy that BK and I get road rage at.
Oh.
No.
Dude.
Oh, yeah. Did you feel better afterwards, though?
No, I felt terrible. I was so embarrassed.
I feel so good afterwards.
I've got my kid in the car. He's 4 months old.
Yeah, he's not going to remember.
I know, but it's just an embarrassing way to act.
I will say that I do not have road rage when I'm in the car with my girls. The only time I have road rage is when it's either me by myself or with my daughter. Or not my daughter, my wife. That's the only time I have it, because I don't want to do that with my daughters, because Adelaide's at the stage where she repeats everything and road rage comes out. My kid's going to sound like the Sopranos.
I was so mad. Somebody on the text line said, guys, I bet BK's Adam's apple was really bulging during this road rage.
No, he's got a vein on the forehead. When he gets angry, it pops out.
Coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by the Blues insider for The Athletic. He joins us each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. He's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on the show. Jared, what's going on, man? How you doing today?
BK, you were scaring me a little bit there because I was actually driving to record the Last Minute Blues podcast last week and drove through Fenton. And I don't know if you guys saw the news, but yeah, there was a serious road rage accident there in which someone did pass. So I was hoping you didn't get too riled up there, BK. I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad everything's okay there.
No. I didn't do anything stupid. I felt like an idiot afterwards because, I'm not the guy that typically gets upset while driving. It doesn't really bother me all that much. Alex very much is, and it's something that we've discussed in the past. But in this moment, I don't know what came over me, but I was furious. I felt boxed in. It was a whole thing. But yeah, no, nothing bad came of it. I did see that news story as well.
That was right up the street from my house,
dude. Yikes. Be smart while you're out there. Do not pull a BK.
Or an Alex.
That guy must have yelled something about Mahomes.
And I had a Chiefs bumper sticker on, too.
Come on now. All right, JR, let's get into the Blues, which is a much more interesting and compelling conversation than it was as recently as a couple of weeks ago. What's gotten into this team, man? They suddenly have a 5-on-5 offense.
Yeah, they do. They really do. And the 5-on-5 defense has been really good, but obviously the offense had been lacking. I think during those first 8 games, we heard Craig Berube, more shots on net. The Blues fan base all talks about the quality versus quantity. And, we came out and said that, hey, listen, even though Craig Berube has preached quality, he still wants to see quantity. He just wants the right kind of shots. Put them on net. Let's have some good, crisp passing and get the puck to the net. The Blues weren't doing that. But in these last 5, they have, guys. And I tweeted the numbers yesterday. In the first 8 games of the season, the Blues averaged about 25 shots on goal, and it was 1 goal per game. In the last 5, they are 34 shots per game, so that's up 9 in the last 5 games. And they're up to 4.4 goals per game, which is 3rd in the league. So obviously the offense is headed in the right direction.
Well, and JR, Craig Berube has talked about what's gone into that too, and he's talked a lot about how the transition game has impacted the shot selection and the offense that they're creating, which for the transition game, we're talking about the defensemen and how quickly they're moving the puck out of the zone.
They really are. And, we talked about the new defensive system. We talked about getting a feel for it. Craig Berube kind of poo-pooed the idea that it could be limiting the offense, but I just really saw two different things going on. I saw a team trying to play the right style defensively that they were coaching and teaching, and I saw an offense trying to find itself. And, guys, we talked about that offense. I mean, the passing during those first 8 games was just off kilter, and I think that what we saw, especially like that Colorado game, I mean, how incredible was that passing? Pinpoint, guys finding each other on the tape, moving it quickly, playing together, bang, bang passing, happened on the power play as well. I think they really found the rhythm with the passing. And to me, that's the biggest part with this offense. You can talk about putting the shots on net and generating more shots, but you can't get those shots off if you're not finding each other with the looks. So I think they've done a great job in that area.
Tough game for Thomas on Saturday, JR. First game without a goal in his last 6. He does, however, put up the 4 assists. Ends up in his last 5 games, he has 10 points overall and is a +7 on the ice in those 5 games. This comes, of course, after I said a couple of weeks ago, hey, I don't know what's up, but Thomas just doesn't look right. He doesn't look like the same player. What have you seen that has changed with Robert Thomas, if anything at all? Maybe I was just a fool to begin with, but what have you seen from Robert Thomas in the last 5 that stood out to you?
Yeah, the fantasy player is upset with him. He couldn't get a goal. He scored 8 goals, and can't get one from Robbie Thomas. He was on a roll there. What I see in Robert Thomas is a guy who's developing offensively even further. We can talk about the past 3 or so years where, hey, are you going to shoot more? He says, yes, I am, and then he doesn't. This year, I wrote the article the other day where he talked about working with Adam Oates, putting himself in better spots, getting that extra time, and then the shot. It's been a lot more accurate. But with that, and if you talk to a Craig Berube, you talk to a Jordan Kyrou, with the element of him scoring, that's going to open up some passing, and we all know what he can do in that area. What's everybody say? He's elite. He's elite when it comes to the passing. So that's what he did. 4 assists the other night. I think the fantasy guys will take those points even though I think there's more goals to come for Robert Thomas.
So speaking of Thomas, JR, you're really starting to see, and we've seen it in the past, but the duo that is Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. And I know that we really can't really do anything. Blues can't do anything until the offseason. But what do you anticipate in terms of Pavel Buchnevich, in 2 years becoming an unrestricted free agent? Do you think the Blues will be able to lock him up?
I think so, and that's preliminary because you're right. They can't do anything officially until next summer because he's got a couple years left on the deal, and with a multi-year deal, they can't do anything until July 1st next summer. Here's the way I look at the Pavel Buchnevich situation. What are the Blues going to be willing to pay? Could he get more on the open market? For sure. If he could make more, you've got to take that into consideration. But what does Pavel Buchnevich have here, guys? I think it's a prime role on this team. A coach that believes in him. He's got the PP time, he's got the PK, and he's on a top line with a guy who's going to be here for the next 7-8 years, and Robert Thomas, who's got all the skill in the world to help set him up. And he's a well-liked guy. I'm working on a story about Pavel Buchnevich in terms of what the guys in the room think about him. And spoiler alert here, they love him. I think he's got everything he wants here in St. Louis. And even though we're getting ahead of the horse here, I think that Pavel Buchnevich would welcome an extension here in St. Louis.
JR, we talked about this in the 12 o'clock hour. Jeremy Rutherford is our guest here on 101 ESPN. I want to get you in on the conversation as well. We talked all offseason about does this team need another left-handed defenseman? What do they need to add? If you could add any one thing to the current roster to make them better for 2023, and let's set money aside for a second, what type of player would you want to add? Would you want to add a forward, a defenseman? What would you think is the biggest need that is missing for this team right now?
Well, as you guys know, I don't miss a second of the show, so I heard the conversation, and I agree with you guys. I do. Alex hit it on the head. I think you're looking at a winger, a left or right, a guy who can probably score, a guy who can most likely play on that second line that would push a Brandon Saad down to the third line. Saad's had a pretty good year, but it just makes you even deeper if you can put him on a third line. I think you need some skill. We go back to the guy we were just talking about, Buchnevich. Could you clone Buchnevich and bring a guy like that on this team? I don't know you're going to find a guy like him, but I think something similar, because you can talk about all the defensemen that you want and moving guys out. That thing's going to evolve, but I think right now the defense is playing pretty well. But I think as you get going into the season, and like you said, what would you want going into next year? I can't see Vrana being back at this point, so I think it would be a guy that could play in your middle six on the wing, score you some goals, and be responsible defensively.
Does that change this team's projection a little bit, JR? Not knowing if they're going to do that. Maybe it's one of the guys like a Bolduc or a Snuggerud that come up and perform there, but if they find somebody who can be that winger in the second or third line, does that make this team's projection looks a little different?
Yeah, a little bit. I'll say this, that, Doug Armstrong, as we know, wants to stay competitive. So let's hypothetically say that with this group of players that they finish third in the Central or they get a wild card spot. Let's say they win one round. I think he's going to be looking to, keep the same competitive team together. So I don't want to say that it slows down or speeds up the retool, but would you see a Bolduc next year? Would you see a Snuggerud in the lineup next year? You may not. It's not saying that he doesn't want to eventually incorporate these guys into the lineup. It's just saying if you have success with this group, then maybe you find a piece here, a piece there that makes it even more competitive, and then integrate those younger players into the lineup. So, I don't know that it changes the projection until I know what this team does the rest of the season and into the playoffs.
He's Jeremy Rutherford. You can read his work over at The Athletic. You can also follow him on Twitter. He's at JP Rutherford. JR, we appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. How do you feel about that, Alex? How do you feel about the idea of them changing the trajectory based on what happens in these top six?
He's right. You can't pretend that things are going to change unless you see the success. If they go in a snowball over the next month and we're right back to talking about this team potentially being in a top 10 pick again, then you're not doing anything there. You're going to stay par for the course, and you're just going to act like, look, the development of Dvorsky and Snuggerud and Bolduc are going to be a key cog into all of this. But let's go down the hypothetical path that they do present themselves as a playoff team. They get in, they get bounced in the first round, but you've seen signs of upgrades. You've seen progress with Kyrou and Thomas and some of the defensemen and Jordan Bennington and Joel Hofer. Well, then Doug Armstrong does what he always does. You're aggressive. You go out there and you find one more piece to fit in next season into the top 9, and you move on from a Verana. And now we're talking about a little bit more of a push. And then the following year, when more cap becomes available to you via you trading away something, guys become free agents, or the cap going up, now you continue to push your chips into the middle and say, let's go for it. Because in 2-3 years, now you're talking about maybe a team that could be a cup contender. But all of this means you got to make the playoffs, which is why I think he put that parameters on the season of like, we expect to be a playoff team. Because if you're not, now we're going towards a rebuild.
Somebody from the 314 asked this question. You guys can get your text in as well. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to Bet It or Forget It coming up here in just a moment. You guys can also watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. Alex, if you had to put a number on it today, what percentage chance do you give the Blues to make the playoffs?
Say 60% chance, because I think it's more than 50% because of how bad the Western Conference is.
I'd agree with that. About 65%.
By the end of this month, if you continue this same push that you've been playing as, I'll put it at 75%. Because you've beaten all these Western Conference teams and you put yourself above the pack. I think you played Nashville once, Chicago once, all of these teams in the Western Conference. You can really solidify a potential spot for the playoff if you have a good rest of November.
I would still go about 50-50. I need to see more. And this is not a shot against the Blues, but I think they're roughly the equivalent of what a lot of these teams are right now in the Western Conference. I haven't seen enough separation yet. I'm with you, though, Alex. If in the next month you continue what we've seen recently, the offense takes another step, the power play gets back on track in a way where they look competent, and they're better than, 2 for 39, I think it is at this point, then, yeah, we can start talking about increasing that number. But I'm still about 50-50 right now. I'm still a little skeptical. Coming up next, Bet It or Forget It here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my dentist, 100 West Dental, just off of Manchester. They got a brand new office with the most modern technology, and the patient experience is at the front of the mind. And look, everybody's got anxiety going to the dentist. You might not think it, but you're like, oh, geez, I got to go again. But look, it is so important to get out there and make sure that everything is okay with your overall health. And I say overall health because whether you got plaque buildup, you've got bleeding gums when you floss, all of that stuff is going into your overall system, and you want to make sure you're healthy. And that is why 100 West Dental truly is the best, because they are all about preventative procedures, making sure that they're taking care of you and early detections of problems with your mouth. And if you've got insurance, make sure you don't let the insurance companies keep the rest of your money by the end of the year. So get in and get your checkups and cleanings now. You can call them at 636-585-0100, and you could schedule online at 100 West Dental, and super simple just to schedule, and no need to pick up the phone and give anybody a call. While you're there, tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, and you can get $1,000 off of an Invisalign package. Get with the best, 100 West Dental. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. T-Bone, I'm actually taking what you just said off of the air and using it as my better to forget.
It's going to be mine.
Is it? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Get us started.
Right. Well, as we talked about earlier, today is the deadline to put guys on the 40-man roster so they are safe from the Rule 5 draft. And the Cardinals, get excited, folks, selected the contract of catcher Pedro Pages.
All right.
Tanner's going to get this name correct eventually.
Pages?
Pages.
G is like a Y.
Gotcha. He's never going to play in the big leagues. But
wow. Jesus.
They've got 4 catchers on the 40-man roster now. Bet it or forget it, they are trading a catcher this offseason.
I think this allows them the flexibility to do that. So I'll say bet it.
I think Ivan Herrera's gone.
I agree.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. In your choose your own adventure, I just jotted down one for me, and Herrera was involved in was involved in the trade to bring in the number 1. He was one of the main pieces. Yep.
I think they're trading for Salvador Perez this offseason, but I like it if they don't end up.
The Cardinals?
No, the White Sox.
Whoa, what?
Cardinals are getting Salvador Perez.
What a odd offseason they could have.
Yeah, I think that the
God,
White
if you're
Sox are
Salvador
trading,
Perez, I would just stay in Kansas City.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I would bet this.
I think that the Royals are going to give Bobby Witt Jr. a massive contract extension that'll be announced in the next couple of weeks.
Bobby's getting terrible advice from his agent.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bobby, maybe play this one out and then just walk.
But I would bet this. I think they're going to trade Herrera. He's always made sense as somebody that could be a massive trade target for somebody because he's a catcher that still has upside, that improved himself defensively this year, and we saw he can hit a little bit as well. So I would bet that he gets traded.
If you're committing to Wilson Contreras as your catcher, there's no reason not to, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, Andrew Kisner is a more than capable number 2 catcher. Do you think they would consider re-signing Andrew Kisner?
Like a contract extension?
Yeah.
Like a press conference at spring training?
Well, let's not go that far. But how many years does Kisner have left? He's got 1 more year of club control remaining. Am I right on that? Yeah, he's got this year and 1 more. I would consider giving him an extension this offseason. Give him like a 3-year deal.
Sure.
Projected to make 2.5 this year, probably 5-year too. So give him a 3-year deal worth like $12 million.
Yep, no.
$10 million.
You're a backup catcher, so sure. I don't. If you want to take a cheap deal for the next 3 years, by all means.
It just makes sure that I have my backup catcher in place for the next 3 years, so that way, if I do end up trading Ivan Herrera, I don't have to worry about it.
But you got Pedro Pages.
Yeah. I wouldn't extend Kisner. He's a backup catcher. Like, you can always find a guy of his caliber for like $1 million. So, no, I wouldn't extend Kisner. I just play out the process, and then you can go from there once you get to that point.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Alex, what do you have for us today?
Bet it or forget it, guys. By the end of this season, the Blues trade players away rather than acquire players.
So you're talking about the trade deadline?
Yeah, by the end of the season. So trade deadline or prior.
I'll bet it. I think if they are where they are right now, which is like a fringe playoff spot.
Can I rephrase it so it's not confusing, because I know it probably sounded that way? More players go out than come in by the end of the season. Yeah. If you want to call it that, sure.
Us front office people would like to call it a buy and sell mantra, potentially. A little razzle-dazzle. I would say
trying to understand what the question is, but I'll say buy. I'm betting this. Yes, yeah. I think that they will end up selling more pieces than they buy. If that's
I bet this because I think even if they're like where they are now, which is right on the back end of the playoffs, we've seen Army pull off deals before. Like he traded Stasny while they were still in a playoff spot, and I think this is a little different because they are admittedly in a retool, and at that point, I don't think they had said that publicly. So I think they will look to move off from some pieces. Now, they may bring in a piece as well. Like, they may try and flip a Verana for a guy that needs another change of scenery as well. They could do that. But I could see where they trade a potential Scandella or a Bortuzzo and a Verana at the trade deadline to potentially bring in pieces. Sure. Like, I don't think it would necessarily be viewed as, like, okay, they're selling off. They're not planning on making the playoffs. More so as, look, we just got to get something back for some of these guys because they don't have a future here, and we're retooling. And if we make the playoffs, it's a bonus.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't call it selling. I think you're opening up spots for guys that are going to be gone by the end of the season. I think Verana and Scandella, if they play well, Scandella has done that. They bring you in something of ilk to use in the offseason to potentially bring something back in. Sure. But I also could see them like claiming a guy off of waivers like they did with Kapanen at the trade deadline and still shipping 2 guys out.
All right, better to forget it, boys. The Cardinals end up trading for Tyler Glasnow. Or somebody, take 2. Tyler Glasnow is traded this week.
forget
this
it.
week, yeah, I'm going to forget it.
I think they're going to take their time. I think they're going to take their time and they're going to wait to see where Nola, Snell, Yamamoto go, and then they'll look to make the move. And I wouldn't be shocked if they don't get what they want. They say, all right, fine, we'll hang on to them. Let the bidding war begin once we get to the trade deadline.
Oh, I'd be shocked by that. I don't think that they can. I think they're trying to sell this idea that they can take on his salary and be fine. I don't think they can. I'm going to do the classic. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't believe that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to have a guy making $25 million this year on an expiring deal for them. I flat out refuse to believe that. Now, if you want to say they're going to extend him, I don't think he will, but they're going to extend him and make year one super cheap for them, that I could actually see maybe as being more likely. Kind of similar to what they did with Wander Franco, where the early years were super cheap and we all knew, oh, year 5 he's getting traded. Because they're not going to have a $30 million salary on their payroll. But I absolutely do not believe that Tyler Glasnow on his current contract will be a Ray in 2024. Do not believe it at all.
Doesn't cost
No
the full
chance.
25 if you trade him by the deadline.
He'll cost you 19.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's $7 million you're going to save.
That does not
$6
work
million.
for the Rays. That does not work.
Math.
They're going to trade him. I can't believe that there's actually people out there that are saying like, oh, they might be able to keep him. Their payroll with removing him is the highest it has ever been.
Yeah,
that's after trading him.
Because of your attitude, I'm hoping he's a Ray on opening day.
I hope he's a Cardinal. I'm going to say bet it. I think they get it out in front of on this one. I think they're going to try to jump the pitching market because you have the most bidders possible for Tyler Glasnow right now. You may have somebody that is more desperate after they miss out on Snell, Yamamoto, Gray, Nola. That is possible. But then you have fewer bidders as well. You have fewer teams that are entering the marketplace for Tyler Glasnow specifically. He is like one of 5 maybe total starters that could be conceivably a number 1 on opening day that could be made available this offseason. I would want to jump the market as quickly as possible, target who you want, and get that deal done ASAP. So that way you have that in place, the team has that in place, and then everybody else can approach their offseason accordingly. But that would be, to me, I think the first big trade that we see this offseason will be Tyler Glasnow. I think that's the way that it ends up going. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it, Bill Belichick will be coaching elsewhere next year.
Bet it.
Agreed.
I think it's going to be... Can't say Dallas as much anymore, although I still think they'll have the collapse and Mike McCarthy will go. But I think you're looking at like a Dallas, Chargers, some team that says we can win the Super Bowl and we're a coach away.
Washington.
I don't know if they're a coach away from a Super Bowl.
I'm with you, but I could see them being like, this is how we...
But if you're
new ownership group.
But if you're Bill, do you really want to go there? Because, like, they've traded away all of the weapons that could have made them good.
It depends on what they think of the quarterback. If they really do believe in Sam Howell, then he's got to say, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
They're trying... They are kind of like the Tampa Bay Rays, where they're really hard selling this Sam Howell thing.
You know who
I
he
just
reminds
don't
me
believe
of?
it.
He reminds me a lot of Jameis Winston, where he puts up a ton of numbers, but he holds onto the ball too long, and there are times where he throws just ridiculous picks.
I think he's Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be around the league for 10 years, and he's going to have some really nice splash plays. When you see his high-level plays, it looks impressive. But if you watch the entirety of the game, you see, oh, I understand why they're losing so many of these games. Because it's up and down and up and down. He's young. You should expect that. But I think he's Ryan Fitzpatrick 2.0. He's going to be a really nice career backup who, when he starts, you see the moments. But you really want him as a number 2. You want him as your backup.
He'd be interesting with the Buccaneers.
Sure.
That'd be
Just
another
like
one.
Fitzpatrick was.
And Jameis Winston.
Yep. There you go. They're all in the same tier, right? They're all in the same category of what they are as players. All right, last one here.
Oh, I was talking
314-399-9646. Oh,
sorry. I was like, wait, what are you guys talking about? Belichick's not like Jameis Winston, but no, yeah, I was talking Belichick and the Buccaneers. Sorry, 2 different topics.
Bet it or forget it, Justin Fields is the quarterback for the Bears next year.
Forget it. I think they're ready to move on.
So my only hesitancy with that is if you got the first and second or the second and third overall picks, if you feel like he's the right guy, could you draft a Marvin Harrison and then trade that third overall pick to get something that benefits you right now?
But you better be right.
Well, and that's the thing. But like the other question is like, what is it that you need? Because if you feel like he's good to go, well, but like defensively, you lock up Sweat right now. If you get a Marvin Harrison with DJ Moore, like you need offensive line, you need more defensive help. Frankly, I think you might need a new coach. But I'd say I bet this one because if you've got both of those picks, you could get like a franchise-altering quarterback and wide receiver. But once again, you're still in a bad spot.
Yeah, I think they move on from him. I think they're about to just restart everything in Chicago. The clean house. I mean, we saw the debacle that was early on with, I don't remember if it was the OC or the DC. I think they're going to fire the coach. They're going to look for a new quarterback. And Eberflus wasn't even hired by Poles. So I think that they're going to look for a new head coach to pair with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be there next year either.
Poles?
Any of them. I think Poles maybe will be back, but the rest of it, I think, I do not think that Justin Fields will be there. I would be really curious to see where he's going to go, though. Like, where does Justin Fields end up? I don't have a good answer.
I'd personally think Atlanta.
That'd be a good one.
Atlanta
makes
would
a
make
lot
sense.
of sense there, but I don't know that Arthur Smith is going to be back.
Yeah.
If this thing goes off the rails, man, you might be why you see him fired.
That might be why you get him traded there, though. You get a new head coach in there with a new quarterback.
Vegas would be interesting for him. I could see him maybe fitting in Vegas with the Raiders.
So you got to have somebody that you go, okay, can that guy take a quarterback to the next level?
Honestly, the Patriots. If you keep Belichick.
Would the Giants try it? I don't know where they're going to end up drafting. If they end up
I don't think they can get out of the Daniel Jones thing. I think they're stuck.
That's a shame. Who could have seen that the Jones thing was going to backfire?
Pittsburgh would be an interesting spot for him. I don't know that they're willing to give up this early on Kenny Pickett, but they probably should.
Yeah, and you have a good head coach there, stability with
honestly, Seattle.
Tomlin.
I like Geno. I think Geno's been fine.
I think you could upgrade over Geno.
He's definitely regressed beyond what I was expecting.
I think that's fair, but I don't think that Justin Fields is a definitive upgrade right now.
I think with Pete Carroll, he might be.
Yep.
I think Pete Carroll could get the best out of that type of quarterback.
I think Shane Steichen might be taking another job elsewhere, though, and so that would make me a little nervous as well, not having that OC in place in Seattle.
Honestly, Carolina.
Well, they got Bryce Young.
Yeah, well, I'd rather take Fields. At least he can throw.
It'll be an interesting offseason. There's going to be a lot of quarterback movement once again. I think this is the new norm in the NFL. So many teams are going with young quarterbacks, which means a lot more volatility with what we're going to see from each individual piece. All right, coming up next, speaking of young quarterbacks, Mizzou bet big on one this year with Brady Cook, and it has paid off in a significant way. This is one of those peak seasons. It's a ceiling type of a year at Mizzou, and it's making me rethink what the ceiling actually is long-term at Missouri. I'll explain why coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and I've got some exciting news for all the men out there. Victory Men's Health has launched a new telehealth site. It's called Victory RX, and men, you can go there to get prescribed the ED medication that you've been looking for. They have made this process over at victoryrx.com super easy. Men, you go to the site. Again, that's victoryrx.com. You'll do your entire consult all via text. Victory Men's Health has already treated thousands of men in their standalone locations, and now they are giving men from all over easier access to the #1 selling ED medication that they have to offer. It's going to be a chewable tablet. It has active ingredients with both Viagra and Cialis. You don't have to worry about this being affected by the food or the drink that you had earlier in the day. And maybe most importantly, the dosage is going to be correct for you the first time around. No need to take multiple of these. It's going to be that one chewable tablet. You will be able to go over there to victoryrx.com. That's victoryrx.com and play hard.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they host the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heat and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, Missouri has me dreaming big again. The Tigers, they've got me back. They have won me over. I am ready to be hurt once again. But this time it's not about the regular season. Because the regular season is already going as well as we could have possibly expected it to. They are I think it's a 12-point favorite on Saturday at home against the Florida Gators, and that's about what it should be, honestly. Florida's not very good. Missouri's a legitimately good football team right now. That's kind of what you'd expect. Mizzou should wipe the floor with Arkansas. It's a bad football team they're going up against. If they do that, if they simply take care of business over the next 2 weeks, they will win 10 games in the regular season for the third time in the last 10 years. Since 2013, Mizzou won 10 games in 2013, or 10-plus games. Double-digit games in 2013, 14, and potentially this year as well. Alex, as I was thinking about that, and it really had a lot of relation to Texas A&M and them firing their coach over the weekend because he's not getting them to 10 wins, I thought to myself, man, it is interesting that the expectations are so incredibly high on an annual basis at Texas A&M with nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, I think we're pretty reasonable as Mizzou fans, expecting like 7+ wins every year and hoping for those peak seasons once every 4 or 5 seasons. And you hope that they're able to get 9, 10, 11 wins in those individual years. So I went through and I broke down what SEC teams have done since 2013, okay? So this is SEC teams since 2013 that have double-digit wins in the regular season. Alabama has done it all 11 seasons. They're a machine.
Wow.
Every single season since 2013, they have won 10+ games. That's absurd. Georgia is also a machine. They have done it 6 of the 11 seasons. Mizzou, if they went out, will have done it 3 times. LSU, Florida, Auburn, they've all done it 2 times. Ole Miss has done it twice as well. If they win their next 2 games, which is expected, they will also get to where Mizzou is at right now with 3 times in the last decade getting to 10+ wins in an individual season during the regular season. Tennessee, South Carolina, Mississippi State, they've all done it once. Kentucky, Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt have combined to have double-digit regular season wins in a season 0 times since 2013. 0. Kentucky, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Vanderbilt. 2 of those teams have really high expectations in Texas A&M and Arkansas. They have not done a single time in the last decade what Missouri is expected to do at this point in 2023. Alex, the reason why I bring this up is because I wonder, have we underestimated, as Mizzou fans, and really I'm only speaking for myself, what the ceiling is actually like at Mizzou? Because if you can do this 3 times in a 10-year stretch, man, maybe you're a better program than we've given them credit for. And you have the backdrop of all of this being the NIL laws that have actually helped Mizzou in a way that I didn't anticipate. Transfers, which has helped Mizzou because kids are going to other programs from St. Louis, Kansas City, etc., not getting the playing time they expect there, transferring back home and getting that opportunity here. Blue chip caliber recruits that are then taking off, like a Mookie Cooper, for example. All of these transfer rules, the stuff that's in place, along with having a really good coach in place right now, man, maybe Mizzou can be a good program, a better program than I give them credit for. And maybe it's a pretty damn good job because instead of going to a place like Florida or Auburn or Texas A&M or Arkansas where they expect you to get to 10 wins every year, and if you don't, you're fired on the spot, maybe it's a pretty good job because they have reasonable expectations and they allow you the time to get to that 10-win season like we have seen with Eli Drinkwitz. What do you think about all that?
I mean, you nailed it. Like, the part for me is, like, the 10 wins is huge, and those numbers back it up. But it's also thinking about them wrapping up the SEC schedule with a 6-2 record. Like, to be 6-2 at the end of the season in the SEC compared to Drink's time where it was 5-5, 3-5, 3-5, and now you're talking about 6 wins, you're putting yourself into at least those conversations with Alabama and Georgia. Now, they're in a different atmosphere because they have the sustained runs.
And then it's everybody else.
Here's where it's interesting in terms of the ceiling of this team and kind of the trajectory and how long it can go. You're not going to compete when Alabama or Georgia are involved with that recruiting side of things. But are you at the top of the list now when players want to transfer away from those programs?
I think they already were. Yeah, I agree.
And now it's even more solidified. If you've got a coach who's showing the actual results on the field, if you start to see some of these guys become high. Look at Cody Schrader, for example. I mean, you get a guy from D2, and now he's being talked about as one of the best SEC running backs right now. That's the type of stuff that puts you into the conversations with Alabama and Georgia as long as you're backing it up on the field. So you're right. If you're talking just that 10-year span of a team that went from one coach to another coach with that murky middle, and now you're putting yourself back into at least a consistent conversation, you're a dangerous program.
I knew we were going to get this from the 573. Hey, Homer, 2 different divisions. Mizzou's in the easy side. They can win more games. Sure. Explain Tennessee. Explain Florida. Explain it. Because I can't. Missouri still has to go up this year against LSU. They still have to play Georgia. They still had to play Tennessee. Man, they've had opportunities to lose games. These other teams have had opportunities to take care of business against Mizzou. The schedule is set up okay for some of these teams in other seasons. They didn't take advantage, man. Texas A&M can't figure it out. They've got their own mess to figure out right now. Tennessee has a mess that they've had in previous seasons. We've seen this with Florida, with Auburn. All of these different teams have had one-off seasons here or there for the most part. They can't sustain anything. And Missouri, I'm not suggesting that they have, but they have now had this kind of, to Alex's point, it's almost like a donut, right? It's kind of like Kurt Warner's career, where the beginning was amazing, the end was amazing, and there was this like middle portion where he was a backup quarterback for Eli Manning in New York.
Yeah, we forget about that.
That's kind of how I think we're going to remember this Mizzou era of football early on in the SEC, where it was Gary Pinkel brings him over, has all of the success early on. It was weird with the Barry Odom era. It just didn't really work for whatever reason. There's a million different reasons. And then you get Eli Drinkwitz, and it's a slow burn to start, but the recruiting takes off, and now suddenly in 2023, they're a real team. And they had a chance to beat both LSU and Georgia. So no. Don't give me any of this nonsense about it being the schedule. Missouri's faced a more than reasonable schedule this year. K-State is a legit top 20 program in the country. LSU, top 20 team in the country. Georgia, top 5 team in the country. Tennessee, top 15 team in the country. They've faced other teams that have been expected to beat Missouri. Mizzou took care of business, man. Don't take anything away from this team. Not this year. I'll accept that in other seasons, not this year. We're able to dream a little bit right now. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. The BK and Ferrario Rewind is next. Hey, for Alex and T-Bone on BK, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Great to be back with you guys today. It's good to get back to our discussion about all the pitching options that are available on the market. Alex, a little bit of a bummer to finish out the show today, unfortunately. According to multiple reports across Major League Baseball, the Padres owner has passed away. This is a sudden and surprising bit of news for us. Rob Manfred just released a statement on this as well. Padres chairman Peter Seidler was pronounced dead at the age of 63. Commissioner Rob Manfred saying, "I'm deeply saddened by the news of Peter's passing. He grew up in a baseball family. His love of the game was evident throughout his life. He was passionate about owning the Padres and bringing the fans of San Diego a team in which they could always take pride in. Peter made sure that the Padres were part of the community in San Diego, particularly the homeless community. He was an enthusiastic supporter of using the Padres in Major League Baseball to bring people together and to help others. Our deepest condolences with Peter's wife and his family and the fans in San Diego." Again, the owner of the Padres has passed away at the age of 63. Alex, not to make this into a baseball story, but I think everybody had some level of appreciation for him because of the way that he went all in with this team. His passing does bring into question, unfortunately. I hate doing this, but it's what we have to do given the job. It does make you wonder, what does the future look like for that team? Because there is now some question on the willingness to pay and spend the way that he had in recent years. I don't know what this means for their pursuits of Blake Snell. I don't know what it means for the future of a guy like Juan Soto, but I would imagine it probably makes it less likely today that those players are in San Diego than it was yesterday.
Yeah, the tough part, obviously, whether you lose an owner or ownership changes, what do they always do for that team, that asset? You try and make it as desirable as possible in terms of the finances, and now you're talking about cutting off a ton of salary. I saw our good buddy Jason Stark put the tweet out, and that's the part that kind of captured me. He said, like, we're losing somebody that everybody should appreciate because it was an owner that basically did not like the narrative of a team being a small market team and proving to Major League Baseball that they could compete with the best.
100%.
So that just sucks when you lose those types of people that say, yeah, we're not going to stick to that narrative. We're going to go out there and actually prove we're worth more than this. But you're right. When you sell a team, when you move on from an ownership, whether it's something like terrible as this, the passing, or if you're just selling them, you got to sell off pieces. And now you're talking about shedding as much salary as possible.
Yep, and that was kind of what may have been thought the Padres were doing. So their offseason just got a bit more interesting in terms of what the plan is now that they're going to be seeking a new ownership group. I do expect Soto to now be traded for sure.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11. The Fast Lane's coming up next.